The U.S. debt clock has just silently announced an end to the Federal Reserve. Is this a crisis or a revolution? Dive into the 34-page plan to replace the Federal Reserve with a new currency. Is it a golden age for your wealth or a hidden trap? Let's explore together. The Debt Clock PDF reveals the Federal Reserve as a private cartel, not a federal agency. Created in 1913, it prints money as debt with no reserves. A document claims this system, born on Jekyll Island, has stolen America's wealth. Your birth certificate and social security number turned you into a debt slave, mortgaging your labor. The $36 trillion debt proves this fraud, stripping your sovereignty. The new money revolution proposes a Treasury Dividend Dollar, asset backed by gold or blockchain, growing 3 to 4% yearly, free from Fed control. It promises a sovereign wealth reserve owned by we the people. No more liens on your property, no debt-based money. A public ledger, DOGE, would track every dollar, offering transparency and whistleblower rewards. The plan demands reparations for a century of Fed theft, restoring wealth to Americans, like a return to 1776. Could this be a golden age, freeing you from debt? The plan rejects digital control currencies, promising unalienable wealth. But history warns of tricks, like the 1764 Currency Act. Is the blockchain ledger a tool for transparency or a step toward AI surveillance? Could freedom cities hide a trap, enforcing digital control? The plan's silence on legal details raises questions. Is this liberty or a rebrand of elite rule? The U.S. debt clock offers a bold vision. End the Fed, reclaim your wealth. But is it freedom or a digital cage? Visit usdebtclock.org, read the 34-page plan, and search Burn the Corporate Fiction on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X. You decide.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Burn the Corporate Fiction. Once again, here we are. Tonight's going to be an interesting show. Last night we were streaming. We had Sovereign Soul Unchained Mind, Mojo Shop, and Janusz were on here. And we were discussing the history of the Web of London, right? So how London is basically all the corporations today that have usurped all the resources in the entire world and are now attempting to lock you into a legal entity identification governed by AI as an indenture, right? Well, these originally were companies and commercial extensions of the Crown District of London, founded by Rome in 43 AD, and all that good stuff. So if you missed that, that would be last night's episode, The Web of London. So, but towards the end of the stream, something interesting happened. For some reason, I was just like, hey, I haven't looked at the debt clock in a long time. They've been changing it, putting weird stuff on it, you know, like X and Treasury Dollar Dividend or Treasury Dividend Dollar and all sorts of weird stuff. So I click on it, and this is what I come up with, or what it came up with, rather. Let me make sure I got it on the right screen here. Boom. All right. So as soon as you, interesting, as soon as you open this page, this is what's on here. So if you just put in usdebtclock.org, you hit enter, boom, Fed under construction, out of time, with a little free book indicator there. It's very interesting, right? And the reason it's interesting is because we just had this situation not too long ago where Donald Trump was chastising Jerome Powell about the construction, them being over budget on the construction in the Federal Reserve, and they were wearing the hard hats. And then that was about 3 or 4 days ago. And this was also about 3 or 4 days ago that this popped up on the U.S. debt clock. Very interesting, right? So before we get into it, let me bring up a fellow jurist, Deb, and I see we got Hold the Line. How are you doing tonight, Deb? She must have stepped away or something for a second. Or she has connection issues sometimes. But we got Hold the Line, Mojo Shop. Hi, here I am. Good to see you all. And yeah, so we're going to break this down tonight because last night it was towards the end of the stream where I was getting ready to shut it down. We came across this and I didn't really have a chance to read through the document that's linked. So we're going to discuss what the document talks about, what it implies, what it means, and the positive or the negative possibility of how this could go either way, right? So this could be Agenda 2030 in disguise, probably is, right? Knowing these people, they're just, I mean, it's a clever way to get people into it, but it also, for reasons that if you've been a long-time subscriber of this channel, you should know, having a tangible asset-backed currency is a game changer because that's the only way you can actually have lawful property rights and access to common law. And I'm gonna share that with you guys tonight, and I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna translate this document, and that's what we're gonna go through. So, without further ado, let's bring this thing up here. So, you go to usdebtclock.org. It obviously comes up with this: the Fed under construction at a time. You click this free ebook over here, and I know, Deb, I see you have connection issues. It's all good. The new money revolution is what the PDF says. Now it's weird, right? This U.S. debt clock, a little history on it. The U.S. debt clock I was looking into is started by, let's see if I still have his bio, Douglas Durst, this fella right here, is who created the U.S. debt clock, right? So let's read a little bit about him, shall we? Douglas Durst was born in New York City in 1944 to a Jewish family, the son of Bernice née Herstein, not surprising. Seymour Durst, he is the younger brother of convicted murderer Robert Durst. That's good, I guess. Durst's paternal grandfather, Joseph Durst, a penniless immigrant tailor from Austria-Hungary, eventually became a very successful real estate agent. Now, mind you, as we read this, it says a major contributor to this article appears to have close connection with its subject. So, meaning the Dursts probably wrote this article about Douglas Durst, more than likely. So it's going to be basically a fluff piece, right? But ultimately, he took over the Durst organization. He presided over the development of several buildings in New York City, including 4 Times Square. And if you're just joining us, this is a guy who founded the debt clock. So we got to get a little history on who this fellow was and why this is important, why this is significant. And the Bank of America Tower at 1 Bryant Park. So the debt clock to this day is still on the side of the Bank of America Tower in New York City. So this is significant. And what's most significant about it is the fact that you probably haven't heard about it from anybody other than me. It's not on the news. It's not on the social media pages other than what I put. And when I put a post on, I've had posts go viral on X. 100,000 plus views. All you do is post something you know people haven't seen on a viral post, and it'll just, as that thing's climbing up to the hundreds of thousands, like Wall Street Apes or one of those guys posts, right? They'll see your reply and it'll go viral. Well, this thing's being shadow banned like crazy on X. It's being shadow everywhere I post it. Only people who follow me can see it, not just random people. They're hiding it on the X feed from the average viewer who's not following me. So interestingly enough, when you read this PDF, you can kind of see why, right? Maybe they want to catch people by surprise, but what this signifies is that they are about to change the system. This is happening. This is actually happening, right? It's real soon. The Fed is out of time. It's gone, right? So this PDF is called The New Money Revolution, a Golden Age, right? It begins with scripture, a den of thieves. And Jesus went into the temple of God and cast out all them that sold and bought in the temple and overthrew the tables of the money changers. That's crazy. That's wild. That debtclock.org is literally telling anybody who clicks this, you know, mind you, this guy has the debt clock on the side of the Bank of America Tower in New York. And anybody who goes to this website to check the debt can click this, and immediately it tells you that the money changers who've taken over the country and usurped your sovereignty and made you a debt slave in your own nation, stolen your land, and hypothecated, which means essentially placed liens on or used as collateral your property, which has caused you to come under administrative law, meaning now you have to be told how to use your property, drive this speed limit, wear your seatbelt, get insurance. And that's because you're in commercial property that you hold in trust. It's being used as collateral for the public debt. And now they're telling you that the people that have done this are the same people that are the money changers from the time of Jesus, right? So what they say is today we are witnessing the money changing crime of monumental proportions. Every day our labor and life energy is being stolen from us by a system that was designed to transfer the wealth of all working people to a small elite class of money overlords whose only desire is power and control with nothing to offer but misery and bondage. This is on debtclock.org. I want people to really understand this. We got Lazy Follow Math in the house. El Picasso, good to see you guys. Good to see you. I mean, Ryan made it. Ryan McVeigh, good to see you, man. So the tally system, and this is kind of what, so this is, and I've learned about this. I believe it was, let's see if it was 1100 to 1694. That's who came. I wanted to say King Henry came up with it, but I can't remember specifically, so I'm not going to lie to you. But I've read about this quite a few times, and now it's right here on debtclock.org for any normie to be red-pilled with. It's hard to believe in our technological age, but there once was a time in England that for 600 years before banks, now imagine that, 600 years, money was counted on tally sticks, perfectly forgery-proof sticks of wood that were split lengthwise for two parties to keep track of financial transactions, mostly taxes. Lost to history? Can the tally stick era return? Well, probably not. Let's be honest, right? So let's see. Yo, Borther. Yes, we now have the technology to create a system that can function as a debt and interest-free money ledger, forever freeing humanity from the fractional reserve banking scheme dreamed up in medieval times to create an asset-backed currency where the people can once again become the owners of their life, liberty, and property. Well, yeah, if we actually get back to a tangible asset-backed currency, right? We should be using gold and silver. Constitutionally, that is what's called for. That's how the Fed slid in the first place. It was unlawful 100% because nowhere in the Constitution does it delegate the authority to Congress to delegate the authority to someone else to create currency. The Constitution only delegates authority to Congress to create currency, not to give that authority to anyone else. And the federal government or any government cannot do anything that a Constitution does not say that it can. Government's founded on compact, that is, which is what a Constitution is. So when they did establish the Federal Reserve started issuing gold and silver certificates. So it was loosely adhering to the Constitution. Well, it is gold and silver. It's just paper. Nobody wants to carry around all that gold and silver. What if it gets stolen? What if it's lost? Right? Paper's just much more liquid and convenient and can facilitate transactions much more easily. And then, we'll just keep your money safe, charge you a fee for holding it, charge you a fee for using the certificates that we create representing your money that we're holding. It's all yours, but we're just going to parasitically profit off of you, right? That's how they slid in the first place. And then, of course, they charged interest on the use of their certificates that could only be paid in gold, the Federal Reserve did. So it only took from 1913 to 1928 to absolutely just destroy the stock market and economy of this country, which was the plan the whole time. And then by 33, they confiscated all the gold at gunpoint, okay, and then mortgaged the estate, meaning the property rights, your ability to property and your ability to labor and the property you own, all mortgaged by 1933, right? As we always go through, it's right here. This is March 9th, 1933. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it's backed by the credit of the nation. It represents a mortgage on all the homes and other property of all the people in the nation, right? So this little prerequisite bit of information is very important because when you look at the law of mortgage, and I can't stress this enough, this is from which dictionary? This is from Free Dictionary is an excellent resource. It has every dictionary you could possibly think of, but this one is from West's Encyclopedia of American Law, edition 2, copyright 2008. So what I'm going to tell you, you can find in that book. It's right here. We're going to go back to the top, and it tells you that The party who borrows the money and gives the mortgage, the debtor, that would be Congress. Well, it'd be you, but Congress is doing it on your behalf because you're under administration. We cover that in other episodes. We're not going into it right now. Is the mortgager. The party who pays the money and receives the mortgage is the lender. That would be the central banking cartel, IMF, Federal Reserve, Bank of England, Bank of International Settlements, all of them, right? They're all one big leviathan of an octopus-like entity. Is the mortgagee. Under early English and U.S. law, the mortgage was treated as a complete transfer of title. So when they did this right here, when they acted, right, as proxy settlers, as it says right here, for the sovereign people, let's see, when they acted as proxy settlers for the sovereign people, they completely transfer, it was treated as a complete transfer of title to your estate, essentially to administrative corporations, right? And so this meant that as far as the borrower was concerned, meaning the people of the United States, the 14th Amendment citizen, because they're the ones on the hook, the real estate, meaning your estate, was of no value, that is dead, right? Now, this is talking about land, the real estate, but they mortgaged your estate, meaning your ability to labor and own property is mortgaged. That's why you're the trustee of a Social Security trust that which all your major property is attached to, so it can be used as collateral for the public debt. Now, this gets interesting right here. It says that the lender was entitled to not only payments of interest on the debt, but also to the rents and profits of the real estate. Well, that's what the revenue codes are. That's what the motor vehicle code is. You are what has been mortgaged, and they administer and regulate your property so that when you misuse your property, but they don't look at it like yours, when you misuse the property you held in trust, they can summon you to answer for your misuse of the trust res, the res of the trust, the property of the trust, and then they can fine and fee you. And that's how they get rents and profits from the property that's been mortgaged. So I just wanted to go into that a little bit for you guys as a prerequisite. We're going to get back over into this real quick because they explain it also, which is crazy because this is, like I said, a giant red pill for anyone who just happens to look at the debt clock and nobody's talking about it. How wild is this? How wild is this? Right? Nobody's talking about this anywhere. And I've tried to put it up on every social media website and it does not get traction for whatever reason. This apparently just isn't news to anybody, or it's being algorithmically hidden, right? Or maybe I just didn't make an interesting enough video. That's always a possibility too, right? But either way, it was the video that I played at the beginning of this episode or the stream. So let's see here. Yeah, we already read that. So says that in England, look at debt is money. In England, in 1694, a grand experiment was originated. What if money was converted from something of value to a future obligation, promised to pay, blessed by the government? The world would never be the same. You know how they were able to set that up? See, that's why I wanted to read this, because I can give you guys the extra history. He said, what? Okay, you got to go. But you should do some step-by-step way to not get arrested. Oh yeah, definitely going to do that. Yeah, no, I'm going to do a Write the Travel binder here on one of these streams coming up within the next week. I just got to put it together. I already have my own. I just got to put it. I got to get it together on the stream to be able to present, like, because it all obviously came off of Congress.gov, and so I have all these. I just have to get them all together and create a presentation, basically. But yes, I do plan on doing that. So this thing, when they say 1694, they decided to experiment in debt, right? And the Bank of England, the reason being is because just prior to that, they had already set up the feudal system, right? And then through a major catastrophe, because they never do anything new, it's always wash, rinse, repeat, where back when Nero introduced the 12 tables with the consent of Senate, he burned Rome to the ground and then claimed everybody dead at sea. Same thing, right? And then took all their property under administration and was able to use that as collateral and for merchants, because it's the same people today that it was back during the moneylender time or during Christ's time. So taking that into consideration, what happened here is you had the London fires of prior to the London fires in 1666, you had the Black Plague, and then the London fires, and then the Set the KV Act, right? And that allowed them, because they had already created this big network of legal fiction through feudalism, where you now have equity dealing with trustees, and very few people have access to common law in England by this time, right? When they burned London to the ground, 70,000 people died. And then they issued the Set Decay Act of 1666, which meant, like, for people who are lessees and revisioners, and they can't tell whether or not the person who's supposed to be, holding their land in trust is dead or not, we're just going to presume everyone's dead. And you have to come and prove that you're alive. Otherwise, your property is coming under the administration of the crown. And because they were able, just like they did with us, with the 14th Amendment, when they got a big pool of collateral through the 14th Amendment, the federal government did, they were able to borrow against all of those estates that that the king was holding in trust. They were able to use that as collateral to issue this debt money in 1694. They do the same thing over and over and over again. It's never any different. Same thing over and over again. Well, what's proposed in this PDF is much different, but I don't trust it entirely. I'm optimistic about it because I try to look on the bright side of it, but what's the catch, right? But this is incredible that they have it up here. Let's bring up Eddie. Hold the line, G. How you doing tonight, man? Fellow jurist?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, sweet.
So you said you had uncovered some gems since we had discussed this last night on stream. What did you come across?
All kinds of stuff, man. They've been dropping truth bombs on the debt clock since 2023. I went back on the Wayback Machine and pulled up some stuff. It's crazy.
So like what type of truth? Like this type of truth?
Yeah. It started with that. Let me see if I can find. I got a bunch of tabs open. Give me a second here. There's a PDF. Where's the PDF at?
Yeah, if you can find that, that's interesting. Has it ever been anything like this? Have you?
Yeah. So the PDF that you can download, in 2023, the first message was that first scripture that you see on the PDF about Jesus
About the
Christ
money
overturning the
changers.
money changers. Yeah, that was the very
Wow.
first message on October 17th, 2023. And
So it's
then
been building on itself.
it's been building, and then he finally, I guess, whoever released the PDF, and it's just a conglomeration of all the posts that have been released since 2023.
So
Found a
it could be like
WordPress about it. Yeah, but
could
you're
be like
right. Which is the weird thing is nobody's talking about this, which is really strange.
well, it's being shadow banned. If you try to post this anywhere, it's
Yeah, it
being
gets
shadow.
no views.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and it's literally unbelievable. Like, not like this is a super giant channel, but like I said, it's easy to go viral on X because you just hop on one of the big guys' posts, and when you want to post a big, a red pill truth bomb real quick, you post something nobody's ever seen. I did it with the 9/11 stuff, got over 100,000 views. You know what I mean? Like quite a few times. And so here with this thing, I posted, I'm like, this for sure is gonna blow up. Nobody's talking about this, and they just like, I look at it 4 hours later, 2 people seen it. That's unrealistic. There's just no way. Unless they are using the algorithm to shadow ban this thing, and that's what's interesting about it to me. And so if what you say is right, and they've been releasing these since 2023, then that means they're done now, and they're signaling, or they could be signaling, we're about to change everything over. It's almost like a ritual, the way you're describing.
They on the Wayback Machine, I think it was the 26th. Let me see. Which tab is it? The 25th is, or no, the 26th is when it changed to what we see now. It's crazy.
Okay.
And then, so I did find some links to the Durst organization, and those people are into all kinds of crazy shit. apparently his grandson murdered his, I guess his wife ended up coming up missing, and they suspected he did it, never could pin it on him. And then like 10 or 15 years later, one of the a friend of his that helped cover up his wife's murder was telling people about it, and he murdered her and was convicted for that.
Okay,
And
so yeah, because
they
it's
suspected that he also had killed one of his neighbors in Texas before killing that woman, but he was only convicted of the one murder. That's that was a whole nother rabbit hole. I couldn't really link the Durst organization to the debt clock, but I did find the
what device
company.
are you
Huh?
on? Are you able to share any of that information with
I was
the on the
trying to get
screen?
on YouTube or StreamYard with my computer, but it is not working. I'm on my phone right now. I can share some of the links that I found. I got this WordPress. It's kind of interesting. This lady breaks it all down, but she's like a trust the plan Q-tard. It kind of seems like
Of
so
course, yeah.
that
Well, it's what this is engineered to. So while we're looking at that, and just so everybody remembers what this is, now you guys see this is right when you go to the U.S. debt clock. So as soon as you search this, like this goes like this. This does seem like a Q-tard, or I don't, depending on whether or not it really happens. Maybe I don't know. But here's the thing: is definitely there's a lot of Q-tards out there who will twist, who will reason, who will like twist their reasoning ability to fit any narrative just to believe that there's like a bunch of knights in shining armor and all that shit that government's going to fix government. But this right here, let me stop and share the individual. I feel like this is a nod to that U.S. debt clock thing. Undoubtedly,
yeah,
it's a nod to
for
it. So
sure. Yeah, they're for sure. So they have an app too. They have an iPhone app, the debt clock, and you look up this company that developed the app. I dropped the link in the chat. It's called Chrono Numeric Labs LLC. They have no website whatsoever. It's some random company registered in Grand Rapids, Michigan, no less. And then the agent for that company is United States Corporation Agents Incorporated. So then you look up those people, United States Corporation Agents Incorporated. Their CEO is a guy named Jeff Steibel. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. I think currently he's also the CEO of LegalZoom, what I could
really,
find. Yeah. And this guy is into all kinds of transhumanism, and
yep,
he's
of
tied
course he
into the
is.
World
Yeah,
Economic Forum, and he's some
so
kind
it's a
of like
trick.
brain scientist. And yeah.
Yeah, so it's a
So that
trick.
was
What?
another a weird link that I found.
So it's more evidence that that it's not all that, because it sounds super good. I really wish this was going to happen because it would work. If we were doing this, it would work. But since they're doing it, I feel like it's just a ploy to trick an already skeptical and wary republic into smart cities, because they know their AI algorithms that are analyzing and predicting your behavior already know that, and we have the Second Amendment, that will never go for smart cities. But now we'll just call them freedom cities, and then we'll just explain that they're exact opposite of smart cities, and that
Yeah.
yeah, right,
It
because that's what the
definitely seems very psyopy to me at this
well,
point.
watch this. This makes it even more psyop. Remember the under construction thing, and then watch this. And these both happened around the same time,
Well, thank you very much. We're looking at the construction,
I
and
think.
we're with the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And we're just taking a look at what's happening. It's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and
Yes,
you're in
sir.
charge of the committee.
Indeed, one of the reasons I wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses, wanted to figure out why.
So we're taking a look, and
He looks
it looks like it's
concerned.
about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah,
Mr. President.
it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it's just-
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody at the Fed. See, and it's initially when he first
I
comes,
looked at it about 3.1 as well.
when he
3.1.
first comes on,
This came from
and
us.
he says this. Watch.
And we're with the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And
this.
we're just taking a look at what's happening. It's a tough construction job. They're building basements where
It's a tough construction job, and they're building basements. And remember what I told you about the building and everything, right? And the symbolism of that with the contracts and building basements. So putting people under where they're not supposed to be. I'm just spitballing. And of course, it could be just nothing, but it's highly coincidental in my opinion, right? So I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
What day was that video released?
Well, this one was posted and it was probably the same day because it's got 3.5 million views. So it's July 24th.
24th.
And now, do you know what day they put this up? Were you able to find that? We found an article about it that was from about 3 days ago, which would have been the same time frame.
Yeah, I think it was like the 25th. I'm looking for it. I must have closed the tab. But it's on the Wayback Machine. If you just they've got snapshots for like the last 7 years. So
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So if it was the 25th though, then that's the day after he did that little construction thing. And so it's a nod to this one way or another, whether it is a trick or they're actually going to try to give us actual tangible currency, which what they're going to give us our property, or there's so many questions that come with that, right? Let's get through the document real quick so that we can, because it's not a very long document, but I want to explain it for people. So right here, the 1694, they were able to experiment with debt as currency because they just did the set the case 1666 and claimed everybody's estates and then used that as the collateral, just like they did here when they, hold on. Sorry, I got to share the damn window. StreamYard really needs to fix that. Where you can play audio on sharing the window. But anyway, so it says England 1694. The way that they were able to do this was by the Set the KV Act. And it's the same thing they did here in 1933. The money will be worth 100 cents on the dollar because it's backed by the credit of the nation. It represents a mortgage on all the homes and other property of the nation. So they did the same thing and put the estates that they had under administration as collateral under the 14th Amendment. They can only do that to 14th Amendment citizens because only 14th Amendment citizens are subject to the commercial extension of London known as the United States Corporation. And that, make no mistake, it is a commercial extension of London. That's what the United States Corporation is. So this is interesting. This is a red pill. And if you're just joining us, just so you know what's going on, US Debt Clock says this now, and you click this free ebook download or PDF download, and you get taken to this. It starts with scripture and then is a massive red pill for any normie who comes across it. Empires cost money. Discipline needs to be maintained among the subjects, right? Maintained among the subjects. From the years 1694 to 1763, England piled up massive debt. Damn, doesn't that sound familiar? Fighting many conflicts. Just from 1756 to 1763, they doubled their debt from 75 million to 150 million. And that's back in 1756 to 1763. That's 7 years. And they doubled their debt in 7 years. That's got to be, obviously, 7 years, double, right? Yeah, that's got to be some sort of Rothschild shit. Anyway, the experiment worked. Today, with very few exceptions, the world operates on a promise to pay system. Money issued, and they can only do that by indenturing you, by the way. That's why you have to drive, the speed limit and register your car and all that shit. Money issued as debt created from nothing. The banks have even gotten the world to believe that this unpayable debt and unfunded compounding interest is a security. This right here is what really blew my mind last night when I read this. And I have to give a little backstory to this because this Benjamin Franklin quote that I'm about to get into down here, I'm a very good researcher. I can find things that they really don't want you to find and have and shown it on this channel many times. And I've never been able to find an authoritative source for this quote, but I knew this is why the war was fought, right? So a British law that banned it. So let me tell the story a little bit, right? Basically what happened was the colonists, when we were colonies here, they were like little independent states already. but they were subject to the crown still. So they're called colonies, and they had to use English currency, the Bank of England's currency. And so they had to get the materials to mint the Bank of England's currency, or to, you know what I mean? They had to use that currency and pay England in that currency, the taxes that they owed, right? And so they ran out of material to make the currency, and the economy started to falter. And Benjamin Franklin's like, why don't we just issue colonial script, and it'll be issued by the colonial governments, so there won't be any interest on it, and we can control the inflation and deflation of it to facilitate and pump up the economy and prosper. Well, just the same reason that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, they do not want any nation in the world to have their own currency, right? Because if it's greenback, Lincoln's greenback, that's one of the major reasons he lost his mind, so to speak. But anyway, so he said, we'll issue this colonial script. Within a year, the colonies were more prosperous than almost any other place on earth, right? And it caught the Bank of England's attention. They're like, hey, so what they were doing was probably exchanging their colonial script for gold and silver, because England demanded that the taxes be paid in, their money, right? So not script. And then they were still just pumping up their economy. So England sent over a delegate. The Bank of England sent over a delegate to talk to Benjamin Franklin, who was a turncoat. He was, he played both sides of the fence for sure. He was a member of the Hellfire Club. So they sent him over to talk to Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin's, he's like, hey, Ben, how'd you guys get so prosperous in such a short amount of time? He said, oh, it's easy. We just make our own script. And there's no interest on it because we make it, and we just control the supply of it based on the market conditions. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Goes back to Bank of England and tells them, and immediately the Bank of England pressures the English Parliament to pass this act I'm about to read right now. And it's the Currency Act of 1764, a British law that banned the issuing of paper money in the American colonies and required the withdrawal of existing money. The act demanded the payment of taxes owed to the crown in hard currency, gold and silver. The effect was devastating to the colonies. Now imagine this. You've just pumped up. You became a business owner. You just became wealthy over the last year because of the colonial script. And you pay your taxes to England. You just convert it to real money, convert the script to gold or silver and send it over there, right? And then all of a sudden, all of the money supply just got yanked out, became worthless. And now you still owe those taxes, but have no way to get gold and silver. So it was the stock market crash of 1928, but of that time. And of course, the colonies just folded in on themselves, right? And that's what led to, so right here, Ben Franklin tells you the colonies would gladly have borne the little tax on tea and other matters had it not been that England took away from the colonies their money, which created unemployment and dissatisfaction. The inability of the colonists to get power to issue their own money permanently out of the hands of George III and the international bankers was the prime reason for the Revolutionary War, not the no taxation without representation, none of that bullshit. All that history is a lie. That was the real reason. I've been looking for years for an authoritative source, and now the U.S. debt clock just puts it in a damn PDF for anybody to come across. And I've searched high and low for this, right? And it's right here, just red pill for anybody. But that was why we fought the Revolutionary War. All wars are bankers' wars. The founding of this country was to get away from the banks, first and foremost, above all else, above the monarchs, above anything else, above the Pope, is to get away from the debt slavery, right? Oh, thank you. Thanks, Eddie, man. So he posted a web archive, and all the stuff you want me to pull up, you got to put in the private chat so that I can actually click it, because I can't click it if I click it, that's what happens on StreamYard, and it comes up like that. But if you can put it in the private chat, I'll pull all that stuff up. You know how to do that?
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, throw it back there, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you. So, Brad Natasha in the house, and Rem, Scott NYC. Okay. People are starting to roll in. All right. So that quote right there was very difficult to find. And that's proof 100% that it was a banker war. The Revolutionary War was. Failed fiat currency. So every single So history is littered with empires that have collapsed for many reasons, but one of the surest ways to destroy a society is to botch its currency. That's what kept happening. When empires rise and fall, that's why they fell. They expanded too far, right? Oh, we got Sarah G. Hey, what's going on, Sarah G? Good to see you. So they would expand their empires beyond sustainability and control, right? They would spread themselves out too thin. And when they started to go broke, they would take their money supply, which had to be actual money, gold or silver, and they would melt it down and mix it with common metals. And then when the merchants and everybody around the world found out what they were doing, they'd stop doing business with them. And obviously that combined with socioeconomic factors of people being poor, broke, rioting, mobs attacking. And then, of course, what we would call today immigrants, illegal immigrants, right? But they took the form of like barbarians and Goths and stuff like that, would infiltrate into positions of power in the government. And that's what took Rome down. Same thing that was happening and is happening right now in this country. Same exact thing. Same exact thing. It's like wash, rinse, repeat, because people never learn. They don't have to. Their plan is simple. Their methods are simple, like the Hegelian dialectic: create a problem, control the reaction, offer the solution. So easy. You want to take away guns? Well, you either use some MK Ultra guy, or you hire somebody, or now they don't even, for a while there, people were so brainwashed into the media, they didn't even actually have to have anything happen anywhere to say that there was a mass, bang, bang situation. And then they already had legislation sitting in the wings to put more restrictions on the Second Amendment. And the people went for it because they believed what they're fed. So simple. But they never change it because people never learn. Well, now we're learning. All right. So it says history's littered with empires that collapsed. Debauching its currency was the main reason. The Federal Reserve dollar has lost 97% of its value since its introduction in 1913. What would be more accurate to say, what I would say, is that the Federal Reserve dollar is not even a dollar anymore and hasn't been since 1933. It's a note, because a dollar is a measurement of Spanish silver. That is the definition of dollar. It's a measurement of Spanish silver. Okay? There's no dollars in this country. There's no dollars in the world. Well, there are, but we don't use them or have them. Nope, none of us common folk, right? All right, so, and then they give you some examples, right? So, Germany, 1919 to 1923, 10 marks per dollar to 4.2 trillion marks per dollar. Wow, that is inflation. Wonder why they were all pissed off over there in Germany around 1933, huh? 3 yuan per dollar to 15,000 yuan per dollar. Damn. So on and so forth. So I'm not going to bore you guys with that, but you guys need to go download the PDF and take a look for yourselves. So silver has been the central medium of exchange for centuries. The big banks know that they must suppress the price to maintain the illusion of value for their fake fiat debt money system. Again, this is on the debt clock, man. I just can't get over this, right? Greenbacks. To fund the Union cause in the Civil War, European banks wanted to charge 24 to 36% interest. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln told them to go get bent. I mean, I'm no fan of Lincoln, but at least he did that. 36% interest on a war debt. That's insane. You would never even begin to even dream of. Could you imagine a 36% interest on the war in Iraq? Could you imagine that? There would be no way to ever get out. Yeah. So anyways, instead, Lincoln printed debt and interest-free greenback paper currency, just like the colonists, right? To continue the war. Too bad they don't tell you here that the Jesuits conspired to have him shot in the back of the head. But, whatever. I guess we'll take what we can get, right? Several factors converged in the fall of 1873 to create a panic and depression that lasted for years. The two main monetary causes were the planned calling in of the greenbacks and the demonetization of silver, which contributed to a stock market crisis. And of course, it was 1873, so it was after they got rid of Lincoln, after they did the 14th Amendment and all that stuff, and now they needed to get rid of that greenback currency. And why not just maximize the result of getting rid of that greenback currency? And they did, and used it to collapse the economy and put everybody into a depression. This is how they ultimately ended up enslaving everyone under the 14th Amendment, was by making them poor so they became dependent and they had to sign up for some form of benefit or help or assistance or something, right? Because they're like, oh, you guys starving? Here, we'll give you some bread. Just come over here and sign this registration form to be a piece of property. How does that sound? Right? Then you can have some bread because we take care of our property. But if you're not our property, we're not going to take care of you. That's the sum of the 14th Amendment. You got anything you want to add on this, Eddie? I'm over here yammering on. Go ahead. You there? You're muted if you're talking, by the way. No, you probably stepped away. All right, that's fine. All right, so the Greenback Party emerged out of the financial chaos of 1873, of course, right? Ordo ab chaos, with a simple idea that the government should issue unbacked debt and interest-free money to stifle the influence of the big banks. While having half the equation for honest money in their hand, their approach still led to disaster of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913, which gave us 100 years of servitude. They're literally telling you that you are a servant right now to the Federal Reserve on the U.S. debt clock. That's wild. So the crime of 1873, dollar to silver ratio, right? An ounce of silver for a day's labor. Listen to this. During a 100-year period, so that the currency stayed stable, no inflation, no nothing for 100 years. From 1773 to 1873, a single ounce of silver paid for the average laborer's daily wage. Today, it would take nearly 10 ounces of silver for a day's wage. Wow. Like if it was the same inflation rate. That's insane. Holy shit. The war on the price of silver. It's funny that they have typos in here too. The war on the price of silver. And look at this. What is this, a little Illuminati pyramid that they're chopping in half there? It's kind of interesting, right? If only 2% of the world's population bought 1 ounce of silver, the true price of silver would be revealed. So they're keeping silver artificially suppressed. Interesting, because that's the stabilizing mechanism of international trade, apparently, and they have to keep it suppressed so that they can fluctuate the market. It's pretty clever. It's very clever. The Federal Reserve System was established in 1913 as a masterclass financial scheme, an enigma so diabolical, so obscure, that for over 100 years, it has foiled any attempt to decipher its dastardly code of destruction. That's nuts, dude. You back, Eddie? Can you hear me? Yo, Eddie. I don't know if he dipped or what. What's going on with him?
No, I'm here. Sorry, I was I was on mute. God damn it! I was putting links in the chat. It's really difficult to navigate on a phone. Do all that shit at one time.
Add to the
Yeah, I'm here.
conversation. I'll be right back.
I don't know what you were talking about, but another interesting thing I found about that Jeff Steibel guy is him and Kobe Bryant were in cahoots together, venture capitalists. They started a company, Bryant Steibel. Another weird link. Really wish I could use my computer for this. Where's this Steibel guy?
What? I'm back. Sorry about that. It's hard being
Right.
it's hard when your daughter wants to make a cameo on your podcast, apparently. But anyways, so you brought these links up, huh? Let me see what you brought up here.
There's
All right.
one. Yeah. So did you that Jeff Steibel guy? Him and Kobe Bryant started a venture capitalist firm together. That's
Okay,
weird.
so this is U.S. national debt clock from what day?
I think that's the 25th at like 8 p.m.
What is
So,
money? Yeah, that's the very first question anybody should ask. Here, let me take this over to the other screen.
and
So,
then the next day at midnight, it changed to the under construction splash page.
interesting.
But yeah,
Hmm.
if you go on the way back machine and just start from October 17th, 2023, everything's in there, but it looks like they conglomerated everything into that one PDF is what it kind of looks like to me. So
Do you think, do you agree like that could be maybe like a signal that they're about to switch over the financial system? Because
I absolutely 100% think they're getting ready to pull the rug on us for
I,
sure.
for sure they are, aren't they? Yeah. I personally have some invested in XRP, just because I know this is where they're heading. I'm not advising anybody to do that, but I will say that within the last week, it went up probably about, I'd say, 30 to 40%. It
Oh
went
wow.
from yeah, it went from trading at two like 215 all the way up to 360, and then it went back down to now it's at like hovering around between 310 and 320. But they're talking about using Ripple as the the underlying system for the new financial market. And so I'm not going to bore people with all that, but you might want to look into it, because think about this: if they're telling you this and you have a bank account full of these notes, what's that mean? And I
Yeah,
think this is their disclosure. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say it means you're dead in the water. It's over for you. You're gonna have to take wheelbarrows of that shit to the store for a loaf of bread. If you can use it at all.
Right. So I think,
Or
like
they
Deb was
may
saying,
maybe
go
they'll
ahead.
do some kind of forced return of all Fed notes, like they did with the gold.
Um, that would be ideal. I mean, that would help people out, like a one for one exchange or something, at least one time, right? To help people.
Right.
But ultimately, if they don't, if maybe this is like, how they have to, the whole adage of the way these dark occultists work is they have to get your consent for everything, because that's the universal law. It's a foundation common law. It can't violate anyone's free will. So if they're always trying to or what was I going to say? So if they are yeah, so like if Mark Passio says, if I'm selling apples and I poison the apples, but my sign just says apples, you come up and you eat an apple and you poison, you die, I murdered you. But if I have a sign that says poison apples and you come up and you eat one of the apples and die, you killed yourself, and I'm absolved of that liability. Well, you were selling poison apples, so I wouldn't be selling them if nobody bought them. That's the whole, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing with, that's how they operate. It's like, well, you agreed to it, right? Well, now it's like, okay, well, if you cared about the US debt, you would have checked the debt clock. And if you had checked the debt clock, you would have known about these messages. And if you knew about these messages, you would have known to get out of Federal Reserve notes, because we
Right.
told you.
Yep.
So this is not our fault. I guarantee you. I guarantee you that's one of the reasons they're doing this, for sure. And then so
Another.
anybody, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Yep.
No, I'm sorry.
No,
Go
you
ahead.
go. No, you
I was
first.
gonna say another thing that's unclear about this debt clock is where are they getting the data from? Like
The
it
real
doesn't.
time data. Yeah.
Yeah, where are they getting it from? Because it's not. They say it's not a government. It's not government run at all. It's all private. So how trustworthy are the numbers? It could, like you said, it could just be a messaging platform.
That's true. It could be. But there's too much of a coincidence with like with this thing with
Oh,
Trump with
most
yeah,
definitely.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. Way too much of a coincidence. And then it
And
happens
it's
at like the same time. Yeah. Go
and it's
ahead.
quiet. It is quiet too. Like I've been on the debt clock website quite a few times over the years, and I've never noticed that shit. Never.
That's what I'm saying. Me too. So have I. Yeah, ever since I learned about it years ago, I always check it. Just not surprised, very apathetic towards it as the debt continued to climb to numbers that nobody can even conceive of in real life. But you can't conceive of $36 trillion.
Yeah, it's insane.
You can't even. Yeah, there's no way, right? So I remember when Barack Obama bailed out the banks and he spent like $26 trillion, right? Somebody had made this graph and actually did the analysis and said $26 trillion. Okay, or I think it was like 20. It was 20 something trillion dollars. But anyways, he said it would be 2/3 the height of the Statue of Liberty, tall, right? And a football field long, stacked with $100 bills.
Yeah, just the number a trill. People don't even know, can't conceive of 1 trillion. How many seconds in a, what is it? 36,000 seconds in a, what is it? How's it go?
I don't know. You could say how many
Oh, you'd have to make $1 a second for 36,000 years
you'd say
to
like
equal
how many
a
years is
trillion.
1 trillion seconds, right? So
Yeah, it's
how
36,000 years, I think.
is it? Whoops,
Something
hold
like
on.
that. Close to that, 35 and some change or something.
So say how many years is 1 trillion seconds? Just one trillion.
Just one.
31,709
There you
years.
go.
That's insane. It's wild.
So 30, you'd have to make $1 a second, every second,
For
to come up with $1 trillion.
36,000 years.
Just $1 trillion.
For 36,000 years,
For
you'd have to
36,000 years. It's insane, dude.
Let's see what everybody's saying in the chat. We got all right, so we got, I can go back a little bit. So we've got let's see. I have silver dollars saved from relatives. I have some silver also, yeah. From actually from Catch 22, one of our fellow jurists. It's,
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, you guys are just saying hi. My bad. I'm trying to address what you might be saying. So Scott NYC says, imagine hearing the debt is sitting on my desk right now. Are you people still talking about the national debt? Yeah, dude, we're getting ready to switch everything over to tangible currency. It's sitting on my desk right now. And a fucking week later, you guys still talking about the debt, dude? There's not. Why is everybody still talking about the debt? It's been that way for a long time. It's been that way for over 100 years. It's gonna be fine. Okay, don't worry about it. Everything's good. We got it under control over here. All right, that's hilarious. So, here I am said, think he killed Kobe. Who? Maybe I missed who you were talking about there. I'm not sure.
Oh, Stybell.
Oh, that guy.
That Stybell guy and Kobe started a venture capitalist firm together right before he died.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, found that little nugget too. I was like, man, there's a lot to, it's a deep rabbit hole, man. And there's only so many hours in the day.
I get it. Trust me.
I was like, God, it just keeps going. Every time you unearth a name and you dig into that person, it's like, Jesus, you people, man.
Here I am says Israel for years has been coming as silver Trump coining, I think is what you meant. Coining a silver Trump shekel, not released yet. That's pretty funny. Shekel. Probably. I don't doubt it. They already got a gold one, don't they? Coining. Yeah, I knew that you meant coining. Yeah, so tokenized hard time tokens. Scott, if you know more about this crypto stuff, dude, I'd love to have you up here because I'd love to have a crypto guy that can really explain the ins and outs. I know that there's like contracts that make crypto, but what they're talking about back in it, and that's why we should get through this page. So we all know about the Federal Reserve, right? We know what's going on. So I'm not gonna. Some things I wanted to explain to you guys because the big thing I guess I want to explain to you before we move on to what they're proposing is what it means to use Federal Reserve notes, like what it truly means. I want to do an in-depth explanation, like I was for the Jurist Society earlier. I want everyone to understand or not, comprehend, whatever. If you guys get touchy about that word, but it's not as serious as you think it is. But to comprehend what it means to use negotiable instruments to try to purchase something, because you cannot buy with negotiable instruments. But before I do, let's see what Brad and Tasha said. You said, I still believe they're going to force us into a digital currency. It was in a bill. Yeah, this is it, Brad and Tasha. This is their plan, but they're trying to sell it like it's going to be asset-backed currencies that are going to free you. So we're going to get to that. And let me go down a little bit more to see anybody else says. Hi says, pretty sure this out of time was in a Q drop. I'll admit being a follower, not anymore. Just listen, dude, there's nothing wrong with being positive and having hope, right? But like, you don't, we just make fun of the people that twist their critical thinking skills and reasoning into believing stuff that's absolutely just, but like if that was a Q drop, then you see the Trump in the construction hat, and then now you go to the debt clock, which is like a big endorsed thing it's on the side of the Bank of America in New York, and it's been used by financial newscasters, and it's well respected, and they're putting it out there, and you put all those three things together. Well, that's significant. Now I even have to say, okay, well, that's strange, right? Now, is it a psyop against us, or is it a psyop? And that would be the only difference, is the Q people don't have any suspicions about Q or any of that being just one big trick to get you into a smart city. I do. And so does I'm not saying that's the case, and I'm not trying to be negative about it, but I just want to be realistic, and everybody has to be skeptical, critical thinking about something that is way too good to be true. This is way too good to be true when I get to the solution part of this. But before I do, I want everyone to understand the problem. Right. And the problem is when you use, so we all know, just to show it one more time in case we got new people, is that they mortgaged your estate in 1933. I'm not going to read the whole thing again. Right. So they mortgaged your estate in 1933. And there is I didn't even know this until, what was it, about a month or two ago? We were going through this book in the Jurist Society. And this guy actually, where was it? Asset sale. I wish I didn't go all the way to the bottom. It's under transfer of assets. So where do we do that? Doing business, understanding commerce. I meant to leave it there, but just bear with me for a second. This is going to be one of the most valuable things that you can learn. It is for me. So I say that. So where do we do transfer declaration of the express? Okay, so it's going to be down here. Let's go do the search and just do purchase. There it is. Boom. Found it. We're good. All right, so there are three principles. This is written by a well-respected lawyer who used to be hired by corporations to fight people like me. So, and then when he got done doing that, he wrote this book and said, hey, if you guys really want to keep your shit safe, this is how you do it. And operate in common law, and in the private, this is how you do it, the private express trust. And anyway, but this is an interesting point. There are three principal ways to transfer assets into the trust, or in general, just to transfer assets. Okay. And it's it says it may be done via a buy in precious metals, purchase in negotiable instruments, or exchange based on barter. Okay. What, right? At first is what you think. Well, it makes perfect sense to me, because precious metals are immediately valuable. Okay, they're immediately valuable, which is why it's called a buy. Purchase in a negotiable instrument is a contract. Okay, and that contract bears obligations that give it future value yet to be realized. So it's not inherently valuable. What's valuable about it is the ability to enforce the obligations attached to it. That's what the value is in a negotiable instrument, is being able to enforce the obligations attached to it. Okay. So when you purchase, because you cannot buy anything with a negotiable instrument, when you purchase something with a negotiable instrument, and that negotiable instrument has attachments to it, especially when negotiable instruments are currency, right? And that's the only thing you can do is purchase, and there is no end date to the negotiable instrument. Right? When you purchase something with a negotiable instrument, the obligations associated with that negotiable instrument and that trust created by that contract, that negotiable instrument, are transferred as the valuable consideration to the property. Right? Because the valuable consideration is the indentures, the enforcement of the obligations. So that's how they created the motor vehicle code, because you don't buy an automobile. you purchase a vehicle. And what you're doing is you're exchanging negotiable instruments. You don't get actually a real bill of sale and an actual title, right? You get a certificate of title and a receipt, right? And that certificate of title itself is not a title. It just shows a interest in a title. That's why it says certificate of title, right? It's not a title. The real title, which I'm sure most of you know, to an automobile is its MCO or whatever it's called and whatever, but it's generally the certificate of origin. It comes from the people who make it, right? So that's huge. And that's a big reason why, as long as Federal Reserve notes are in existence, because they are debt and they represent future obligations of the United States. And what they really represent is your future sweat equity to be collected in taxes and revenue, such through the motor vehicle code, income tax, property tax, etc. That's what it represents, right? And that's the only thing that gives it value to anybody. Everything that is purchased with a Federal Reserve note immediately has liens on it. It immediately comes with obligations. And that's why they created the Social Security, to create an account number to tie all of your property, like your automobile, they call a vehicle, and your house, and your just everything that is actually a real, like a valuable property, right? They attach it to your Social Security number so they can regulate the use of it, and they can fine and fee you for it. And they can do that because they mortgage your estate and you cannot buy anything. And I say this all the time, you can only purchase. And now some of you might be going, well, why do bankers say buy? How can they say buy if really it's a purchasing? Because of the Securities and Exchange Act. Now, a long time ago, when I first read the Securities and Exchange Act, several years ago, and I still have it in one of my legal binders, the whole thing. I printed out thousands and thousands of pages of enactments when I was going through a frenzy of trying to figure out what they were doing, until I did figure out what they were doing. The Securities Act, the very first section of the Securities and Exchange Act in 1934, is defining trading, exchanging, all these different actions with securities as just being able to be called buying and selling. They specifically created statutory construction definition to change this difference between buying, purchasing, and exchanging, to just make everything mean buy and sell. And if you read the Securities and Exchange Act yourself, that's exactly what the very first section of it is changing that definition of this difference, so that you never know that you're actually purchasing. And purchasing comes with strings attached, right? So that's the currency system we have. You can't buy anything, okay? All you can do is trade debt. All you can do is purchase. And that's the problem. And as long as you do so, you'll never actually be free. All your property will be controlled. See, I say this all the time. Man does not make law. Common law is do not violate someone's free will, honor your word, honor your contracts. That's pretty much it. You can sum it up to that, right? And man cannot write that, can only write about it. But what man can do is regulate commerce and regulate property. And they can only do that if they get you in some sort of indenture or under administration or both. By you being incompetent, by you being a pauper, or by you contracting your freedom away. That's it. So now that we know that, let's get to what they're proposing here, shall we? Did I explain that well there, Eddie? Got anything you want to add on it? You want to add on to that?
I went off into this rabbit hole and I started searching purchase and the terms and conditions of, just whatever. It's interesting.
It's very interesting, isn't it? I came across
let's see, Sony. I just went to Sony. It's the first one I thought of. What was it? I found an interesting section. Purchase. Where the hell did it go?
Yeah, it should be interesting, Scott, for sure. food delivery trucks, hungry mass people. I talked to my good buddy today, and I was talking to him about this crazy stuff we found last night, and he said, "Well, that's strange because Donald Trump Jr. his whole thing. He's got a podcast on Rumble. I'm sure a lot of you know, and my buddy watches him, and he says that all the time. He's saying buy gold, protect your assets with gold, buy gold, and now just recently, just within the last few days, he's changed it to buy ammunition." Ammunition is going to be the value. Buy ammunition. What's that all about? I don't know. Right?
Here it
Interest.
is. The use terms own, ownership, purchase, sell, sold, sell, rent, or buy in this agreement or in the connection with PSN does not mean or imply any transfer of ownership.
Of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. Because you're not buying
take
anything.
take that little term, that little clause right there, transfer of ownership of any content, right? Just copy that and do a word search in almost any of the terms and conditions of anything you use or buy, and that's in there.
Even I didn't know that, but it makes sense. Yeah, because they're just making it extra clear. Like, just because you're giving us these slave tickets for this doesn't mean you own it. In fact, that's the exact reason you don't own it. Right? Or do not own it, rather. So we know about the Great Depression. They did that, deflating the dollar in slow motion, all that. Now let's get to their their actual, what they're talking about doing. All right, so USA Restoration, this is what they're talking about doing. So we're going to compare what we have, purchasing with negotiable instruments that carry liens and cause you to be administered and your property to be administered, and have to follow arbitrary codes and statutes that have no victim, and you get fined and feed and even put in jail for violating them, right? Because you're chattel, public chattel. This is how they are proposing to fix it. All you have to do is agree to go into a freedom city, and be governed by AI, but you'll have asset-backed currency. Don't worry, right? So for over 100 years, the world has witnessed the horrors of communism and its dehumanizing effect on civilization. That's true. Power, control, and expansion by any means. To no one's surprise, this subterfuge extends to economic warfare. How do you stop a nation committed to destroying the economic base of another, especially when they control the banking system, right? Tariffs. That's interesting. Okay, let's see what he has to say here. Between 1820 and 1913, the government was mostly funded by tariffs. At just 3.5% of the GDP, tariffs could bring in $1 trillion a year of revenue. With the addition of the USA Dividend Dollar counted as revenue of 1.5 trillion, income tax and corporate tax can be completely eliminated. Fair enough, but still, I don't like the aspect of the AI, the like being put in a city. Now, okay, let's just keep going. How do you destroy the greatest nation ever conceived? You kill incentive by taxing income, for sure. Yeah, that's why everybody wants to be on welfare. They'd rather be receiving the taxes of other people than paying for the, welfare of other people, basically. You can't take something from someone at gunpoint and give it to another. That is against the law. That's why that was the whole scheme of coming under the federal corporation for privileges and immunities called civil rights. That's what the 14th Amendment is, in exchange for allowing them to administer your estate and basically be your daddy and tell you what to do. You become joint tenants in this situation. You have shared interest or unity of interest in the United States, essentially, and everything that the United States holds. So you become part of this corporation, and you exist only to do what's best for the corporation as a whole. And that's what allows them to be able to take from one and give to another, and silence you for civil rights. They have gay rights, don't say that word. They have these rights and that, and those aren't actual rights. They're privileges and immunities, like the 14th Amendment says. They're not rights, and they can be taken away at any time. And often those quote unquote civil rights are used to take away the actual rights, the natural common law rights of people, right? That's how they do it. So when they create this welfare scheme, The only way they could create that's why the first thing they did once they got to the debt-based currency is the Communist Manifesto from start to finish. A central bank is absolutely essential for communism to exist. A central bank is absolutely necessary for communism to exist because you have to be able to indenture everyone equally and then take complete control of all property in order to take from one and give to another at will. Right? And that's welfare, the whole thing. I hope you guys are starting to get the big picture right now. So the debt money tax prison, right? How do you destroy? Yeah, we already said that. All right. So the new USA Treasury Dividend Dollar sets America free. Okay, let's see. Right. What is money? Well, I hope everybody here knows what money is. It's actually tangibly valuable and not negotiable instrument, but wealth extraction scheme, right? Loses value every year through inflation, et cetera, right? So it says the felonious, yeah, they're just showing the difference, right? We know the difference between wealth, so let's go down. Liberty versus tyranny. Free enterprise. Oh, so this is where they're going to contrast their freedom city to the smart city. Okay. Citizens free to create boundless wealth and prosperity in a world of plenty. CBDC prison. They thought they could corral the people into a digital prison. What don't they know? That's true. I mean, that's true. So they're saying state chartered, so the states would create their own crypto. So this is why your state a couple years back created that crypto that was backed by gold. Didn't you guys do that down there?
Texas.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about it, but I'm not into that shit.
You probably didn't, but I did. I read about it, and it's supposed to have happened. I want to say like September of 2023. I think they launched a crypto that was backed by gold. So
Crypto backed by gold in
Texas. Yeah. See what you come up with there. No ID required. Okay, well, I like that. No ID required. Okay, that's actually a good thing.
Texas recently enacted a law recognizing gold and silver as legal tender, effective June 2025. Apparently, Texas Senate approved gold-backed digital currency bill.
When did they do that?
Let's see.
Crypto Anonymous. No capital gains. I don't know. That sounds, if they actually do all that, that's financially, that's actually, and even sociologically, like, you know, that's not bad because the no ID required, that's the big thing. This whole thing hinges. Look how they even got the thumbprint there. This whole thing, the CBDC prison hinges on
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Shoot. Yep.
June 2025.
Okay, well, I know they've been working on it since 2023.
It says law directs the state comptroller to develop electronic systems for gold and silver transactions, potentially enabling digital currencies or tokens backed by these metals. Interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah, and that's what they're talking about here on the left-hand side. So they're saying state chartered, not centrally controlled or federally controlled, which is huge. That means that the banks, any kind of crypto bank, if that becomes a thing or is a thing, right, could not just take over every state all at once like they did with the Federal Reserve and the banks prior, because it's not centralized. They'd have to take over each state one by one if it's state chartered, the currency, right? That's, look at it. It says sovereign citizen here, bankless card. What? Dude, if they actually come out with some stuff like that, I'll see it when I believe it. How's that sound? I'll say, but I mean, I'm not going to be negative about it, but I mean, come on now. That's way too good to be true. Where they're talking about, like, you don't have to identify yourself. You can just spend your money. There's no need for an LEI is what they're saying. What I talk about all the time on this channel, they're saying there's no need for an LEI. That's what they're saying.
I'll be back. I'll be right back.
Okay. USA Treasury certificate, debt-free currency. Yeah. I mean, if it's state chartered, that's a huge thing, dude. First of all, that gives power back to the states. Now, the issue is it going to just create a bunch of little tiny versions of what we already have right now? That's the question. Is it, because if it's state chartered, well, our states are super corrupt. In fact, it like right now, yeah, it's sad to say, but it's kind of the federal government. Sometimes it's the only thing that keeps the states in check from being overly corrupt, in my opinion. Um, Interesting. All right, let's go down. World debt security, 100 IOUs. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. So, the great banking unwind, fractional reserve banking has a reserve ratio of 10%. A new USA Treasury dollars flow into the system. State credit unions will be capitalized as reserve ratios will be increased on an existing Fed-based banks until the transition is complete. Oh, okay. So they're going to slowly transition it over. But are they going to try to move us into those cities while they're transitioning? Because no, absolutely not. As long as the Fed is in this country, there's, well, I'm not going into no, there's just no way anyways. I'm not, because it still has to have some form of LEI. But then again, if they get rid of the debt currency, the negotiable instruments, sorry guys, I'm sitting here going back and forth with myself trying to think, because if they get rid of the debt, if they get rid of the negotiable instruments as currency, then it takes away all the liens. It takes the mortgage off of your estate, and you have the right to property, which means your property is not under administration anymore, which means they would have to get rid of the speed limits and all the motor vehicle code. They'd have to get rid of that because that's part of the regulation of your property. That is part of the administrative government, the corporate government, the way that they basically fleece you as the rents and profits of the mortgage. And so that would have to go bye-bye right away, right? Or not right away. They're talking about transitioning, but it would have to go bye-bye. So there'd be no need for a legal entity identification. There's no need for an account number that could, yeah, Chicago's got a good point. Can anything government related be good? Ordinarily, no. And probably not here. I'm trying to, just keep a positive, or I'm trying to look at both sides of it. Do I trust it? Hell no. Hell no. Hell no. I would have to have Stockholm syndrome to trust this, right? No, absolutely not. I don't trust it. But does it sound good? Absolutely. And it would be the exact solution to the problem. We all like our right to travel, everything. It would be the actual permanent in mass solution. Aside from like what we do now, you can claim your estate, you can gain standing to fight them. It's still a fight, but you have standing. They usually don't want to mess with it. That's how but this would take it off everybody, even the normies. And then there'd be no administration of property. That means there would be no, there would still be some administration of property. I mean, that's just an integral part of law. There's always going to be paupers, poor people. There's always going to be criminals. There's always going to be people like that, but not the entire nation is what I'm saying. So, so when you live in a municipality and they're telling you have to keep your grass so high, right? Well, that's regulation of property. So they're not going to, and then it's going to be like, well, what gives you a superior interest in my land? Because I bought to this, I own it. I didn't purchase it with the security. I bought it, and I have the absolute perfect title to it, the allodial title. So what are you talking about? That's the big thing about having actual tangible asset-backed currencies. You could have allodial title. You can't do that if you're trying to purchase with debt securities, which are negotiable instruments, right? So we got the True Few showed up. Good to see you, brother. As always, I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Valley Park showed up. Good to see you, brother. Or sister. I'm not actually sure of your gender for sure, but so I don't want to misgender you, right? I wouldn't want to do that. All right, so G Money. Now this is another interesting aspect of what they're talking about doing here, right? Is real-time public debt ledger. Now, even more interesting, DOGE audit trail, which DOGE, Elon Musk is setting up the AI, you'd have to have Stockholm syndrome just to be like, oh, well, that's a good thing. I tell my buddy that all the time. He's like, why are you being negative? I'm like, I'm not being negative about it, dude. It sounds awesome. It would be great, but I would have to have Stockholm syndrome to just be like, hell yeah, this is exactly what's going to happen. It's not a trick at all, right? When every single other major thing that they've done has been a massive trick, right? So I mean, look, they did. That's what the creation of the Federal Reserve Note, and after the war, the big boom of manufacturing, because Europe was in tatters, led to a very prosperous United States, right, throughout the 50s and 60s, and you could afford a house, a big house, and a car, two cars on one income, no problem, because the dollar or the Federal Reserve Note was strong. It just came out, and it was slithering its way into the rest of the world through becoming the global reserve currency, so that everybody could standardize the same system they set up here and indenture their citizens too. And then you create a world indenture. It's really the realization of the unum sanctum, first world trust by Pope Boniface VIII in 1302, I want to say it was, or 1308. It was 1302, I'm pretty sure. Whatever. Anyways, that's what that is the realization of that. So how could this not be a trick? And I want to bring something up, and I was talking to the jurist earlier. You missed it, Eddie, because I think your nap probably ran too long or whatever. But
Most definitely.
that's what I told everybody. I was like, he said he was napping. I bet he's still sleeping. So we might catch him later. But
I caught like the last 3 minutes.
but so what I was telling them is, during the Revolutionary War, and I was trying to find the article that I had read, but Patrick Henry was famous for saying, "Give me liberty or give me death," right? Well, people don't know, because they don't teach you this in school, that the reason he was inspired to say that speech, right, was because he witnessed a minister be flogged to death for not having a license to preach. And in the decades leading up to the Revolutionary War, this was a common thing that was rising among the people, the same way it is today. And I think they know it, because they know how to read the astrological clock, And they called it the Great Awakening leading up to the Revolution. And it was a very spiritual thing. Like, they were all Christians. They were a majority Protestant Christians, actually. And Patrick Henry was, right? I think he was a Calvinist, if I remember correctly. And they knew what the church was up to. They knew what the banks were up to. And they knew what licensing was. And they knew that they were being indentured by the banking system, the same way that people are waking up to it right now. I shit you not. And Valley Parks is related to Patrick Henry. Actually, that's awesome. Pronouns are stupid. Yeah, they are. Anyway, so so it was called the Great Awakening. Now, what's interesting about that, and I know I'm going to lose some people with this, right? Because people just, whatever, it's been so inculcated into people to think it's hokey pokey. But JP Morgan has been quoted as saying, millionaires do not use astrology. Billionaires do. And if you actually study it, it's not the campy little, like the Valley girl going, "Oh, my sign is this." That's not what astrology is at all. I mean, it's a very small, infinitesimal part of it, but there's so much more to it. And you have to have a deep occult understanding of symbolism and the interrelationship between the energies of the different celestial bodies, how they interact with each other at different angles, and angle, right? Anglo and all that. It's the different angles create different aspects that create different environmental conditions on our plane, on our toroidal plane, right? And so the reason I'm bringing this up is the astrological conditions, and I looked it up earlier. The astrological climate during the Revolutionary War was the astrological climate during the Revolutionary War shares striking parallels with the current era. The presence of Pluto and Capricorn during the American Revolution and French Revolution, as well as current transits, reflect themes of transformation, power struggles, and social upheaval. Now, I'm not bringing this up to be all hokey pokey or esoteric. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it would explain why they're so panicked to get some form of smart city, even if they have to compromise with the Freedom City. Whoops, that's not the Freedom City. Where is that? Right here. Even if they have to compromise with the Freedom City just to get it set up, even if they have to say, okay, it'll be state chartered, no ID, we'll get rid of the LEI, Crypto Anonymous, just let us get this infrastructure set up and weather the storm, so that when this climate dies down in however many years it takes, right? Then we can finish doing what we started, because they know that if they go back to the starting point again, it's going to take so long to get back. It's just like the Tower of Babel in the first place. I think they keep trying this stupid shit over and over and over again. I do. Because the Tower of Babel, right? What do we call the language of lawyers? Legalese. Right?
Legalese.
And to the average person, it just sounds like Babel. Well, that's the Tower of Babel, is building this structure of their own golden age heaven on earth using contracts, right? Is words, Babylon, right? They tried to build that thing up and God struck it down, and they keep trying to do it, is what I think. And I could be wrong. I'm just some crazy guy on the internet, but I think that I think that they're panicked. The reason that the whole thing in 2020, and think about that, like 2020, perfect vision, that whole thing, right? 2020 people started to wake up real quick after 2021, 2022, and now it's just been snowballing. Just like, am I wrong? Do you guys see this, or am I just wishful thinking?
Most definitely.
More and more normal people, like when you look at normie podcasts like Benny Johnson, stuff like that, and hey, not hating on him, he's actually putting a lot of heat and pressure on people about the client list and stuff like that. So he's not as nerdy as I thought he was, or like normie as I thought he was. But like, you're talking about, just the average American knows that satanic PDF files are running everything. They just know it now. It's just common knowledge. You know what I mean? You got mainstream guys like Benny Johnson, and all them guys are just talking about it like casually, like, yeah, they destroyed Maui with some lasers. Yeah, all that's like just common knowledge now. When before, this stuff like would be insane. You'd never hear Benny Johnson or any of these guys talking about that stuff. So they're waking up very quickly. And I think it's got these people in a panic mode to where they're like, look, all right, wait, maybe we should just work with them for a little bit, right? And get them into the cities, get them into the grids, okay? Set the grid up. Even if we don't do the ID thing and everything, just get them into the grid. Then once we get them into the grid, as soon as the time is right, we'll spring the trap. And meanwhile, I'm sure they're going to be doing other things in the background. Or I could be wrong and just being totally suspicious and negative, and maybe they are genuinely trying to get us back to a solvent state, basically, where we can actually own property and not be administered, not have an ID, not always be in the public. See, the problem is you cannot be in the private right now because you're public chattel. And everything's owned by the public, including what you think is your private property. You're just a tenant on that because the county or whoever, some corporate entity, is the feudal lord of that property and charges you a property tax. And so they still have an interest in it. So technically, it's still public, right? You can't just go in and seclude yourself in private on your land and just do whatever you want all the time like you used to be able to under common law, because you're not a real man or woman anymore. You're chattel. So you can't buy anything, so you don't have gold or silver, so everything has liens on it anyway. And you also, because your estate was mortgaged to back the Federal Reserve note in the first place, you are property under administration. So they can control what you put in your body. They can force you to put this in your body and tell you not to put, say, marijuana in your body, right? Because you're chattel. That's how they get to do that. This would eliminate that. But why? Why would they do it? Right? You're talking all the people you listed off. So this interesting thing too, here's another thing. So real-time public ledger, DOGE audit trail, traced by house district, traced by individual ID. So basically what this is saying is they're going to turn this system that they wanted to put on us and place it on the government. So now they get the little thumbprint and ID, and they have to be accountable for everything they do. and they have to be watched and tracked in real time on a real time public ledger where you can be like, I wonder what Nancy Pelosi is spending our tax dollars on or whatever, right? And you can look it up and what she's endorsed and what she's voted on and all that by her individual ID. That's pretty wild if they actually set that up. So why? I'm actually genuinely asking why. I do not trust it, but why? Why are they doing it? It sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds like the trust the plan bullshit to me, man. That's what it sounds like to me. Sounds like a
Well, the interesting thing,
opium.
I agree with you. And like I said, I'd have to have Stockholm syndrome just to automatically, just be like, oh yeah, this is happening. This is great. I mean, it is a little inspiring. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's like, oh wow, something's gonna change, right? Whether for good or bad. But my question is why is nobody talking about it? So like
Yeah,
that,
I
what you
had
just
that
said,
same question. Yeah,
what you just said would
nobody's talking about it, which is weird.
what you just said would be perfectly reasonable. Like, yeah, it's a trust the plan thing, it's a Q-tard thing and all that, right? Except for, with those type of things, they blast it out
They
there.
blast it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that know about it because that's the whole point of it. They're literally suppressing this. They're shadow banning this. They don't want people to hear this. And so the one explanation I keep coming back to is that it's like the people who come across it will know to get their money out of Federal Reserve notes and put it into, whatever dividend dollar, if that's even available, or something that's going to back do your research. If you've done enough research to get here, then you probably can do your research in order to put your money maybe. And that kind of absolves them from the karmic debt of what's about to happen. Uriam says, you act like you didn't get your DOGE stimulus check. Yeah, no, I got that, man. Yeah, it was nice. It was real good. Real good to get all those debt notes. And that's so stupid. Oh, we got Chicago Cubby Bear. What's going on?
Hey, what's happening, guys?
Or Chad,
What's
as
up?
you'd prefer.
Yeah, whatever. Either or.
So
You got something you want to put in on it?
Yeah, I think you're on to something when you say that about the 15-minute city thing, because I kind of live in a city. I mean, I'm kind of on the outskirts of the country, but right in the city. But one thing I've noticed over the past few years is that, like, little by little, like all our streets, they keep narrowing and making bike paths and expanding walkways. And I see all these people buying e-bikes and everything. It's like a real big push. And it's under the guise of like being healthy. But I think they want everybody out walking, being in a 15-minute city. They want everybody to where you can only go within a certain area and get all your essential needs and then be back at your house in a certain amount of time, like you're saying. But I've noticed that like every road, they just keep like little by little narrowing the roads for actual driving, but expanding it for bikes and walkers, which I'm not against health, but you know what I'm saying?
So it's basically a rebranding of Agenda 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because what under the guise of health, they're renovating all that. But are they forcing people, or do you think there's anything in the pipeline? Because here's the one thing that keeps catching me on this. I'm totally with you, and I highly suspect that's the case. This is a trap to trick people into the 15-minute city. But when you get to this. No ID required. That's the whole crux of the entire thing. They have to have that LEI to regulate your behavior because that's how they do it. They have to have that trust account to create an attachment to create another trust to cause you to, perform whatever obligations they put on you.
Well,
So
what's with the proof of what's with the real ID then? Why the push of the real ID? Why would they be making such a big push on that if they're saying this?
That's a good question. And so maybe the no ID required simply means just no ID for the crypto. Yeah,
okay.
That's what they mean. That's for sure what they mean. They still want you to have an ID. There's just no way in hell they'd ever get rid of that. That's too much control. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way they would. To be able, because you got to think there's a time in this republic, right? When you had your child's birth was recorded in the Holy Bible, in the family Bible, and that was it. and it was nobody's business. Nobody had to know your name because you're private individual. You know, you're a private person. And so somebody would be like, "What's your name?" Be like, "Don't worry about it." You know, same thing I was saying the other night. It was like, if you, and I don't know, you probably didn't hear, but it's like if you go into court and they go, "State your name for the record." I usually say my thing. I come before the court. I haven't been found to be living, but what if you just said, "What makes you presume I have one? Do I have to have a name to be living?" What if I never had a name? Would I not be able to be alive, to be living, and to be in society? Like, what? Why do I have to have a name? Well, no, because it's not a name. They're just calling it a name. It's a legal entity identification attached to account number that they want to be able to create attachments to in order to generate commercial paper and control your behavior and use of property. That's why. That's what the name, and they made the all caps name. They made the account number. That's their stuff. And your parents gave you your name, and the surname was started by Napoleon in 1803, actually, or the use of the surname for identification was started under Roman civil law. That's a Roman civil law thing. So it's interesting because if they, so they're just figuring basically, okay, so now I'm thinking about it. They're figuring, well, with the AI governance that we're going to set up, we don't need you to have an ID for your crypto or your purchases because AI is going to be monitoring everything you do anyway. We're going to know what you buy. We don't need to know, we don't need to have the money linked to you because everything's linked to you at this point, probably. Crypto anonymous, no capital gains tax, right? All that.
Yeah.
So
Expanding your digital wallet, so to speak.
yeah. But this part right here is actually alluring. You know, they have to be.
Another big thing too, on top of the roads and whatnot, there's a lot of more Section 8 and affordable housing. That's another big push I've noticed too. I mean, with everybody that they brought in, no doubt, but you know, it's going kind of everywhere. It used to be in certain areas. Now they're even in some of the better neighborhoods, so to speak. It's kind of expanding all the way out there. It's just a big push all around where I live anyway. I'm not sure if it's
And you said it was
everyone, but
what? Non-governmental housing?
no, affordable housing and like Section 8, stuff
So
like that.
section. They're putting that. Okay, so here comes the okay. Wow. You know what? One big factor I didn't take into account this whole time we're talking about this new currency system. It's going to be a UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Yeah, probably.
Well, it's definitely going to be because the state of U.S. manufacturing situation that's here in Michigan, Automation Alley in Oakland County, and then there's a couple other spots, but that's the hub, WEF's hub for the entire United States to implement smart technology into all the manufacturing and all the industries, to implement smart technology to essentially, monitor and make the human resources more efficient, but more importantly, to replace them. And that is happening. And they're talking about that. Like in the paper I showed when I was talking about the state of U.S. manufacturing, I actually have it somewhere. We'll go through it sometime, but yeah, it's quite crazy. And they set that up in 2022, almost as if to be in anticipation of like the tariffs and the bringing the manufacturing back here, and this right here. So of course they're expanding Section 8 housing because that's about to be pretty much what there's so many unskilled people who cannot survive off on their own, like by a trade or something. What I mean by on your own is you don't even have to be on welfare to fit the definition of what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if there wasn't a corporation that's already established a business, a product, and a market, and was able to turn around and hire you to just say flip cheeseburgers or run a register or even put nuts and bolts on one device as it goes down the line or whatever. And you might make $25-$30 an hour doing that at a plant or a factory or something, right? As a useless job. You can't go do that on your own. You can't make a business like, hey, come down here to Ryan's where I can put nuts and bolts on your screws for you. Right? No, it's not a trade. No, you can't start a business with that. You can't be self-sufficient with that. So you've got to actually have a skill in order to make it what's coming. You got to be able to build. You got to be able to plumb, be an electrician, HVAC, or you got to have some sort of computer. Well, no, because I think all the computer trades are going to go the way.
Probably AI.
Yeah, all AI. Everything's you're gonna have to do something that's valuable that AI cannot do, or you're gonna be in a UBI.
Because Google just went through a big layoff of people. That's AI's taking over all their jobs. I can only imagine it's only going to expand from there.
Ethan says name is probably an acronym for something diabolic.
Could be.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about the very close similarity between the word name and the word number. So um, there's a lot to that, and then numerology, but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, there probably is some diabolical behind it. Well, but there's also some biblical behind it, Ethan. I'm not sure how you feel about that, but that's the one thing that God gave, or one of the things God gave man the ability to do is name all the creatures. And that's how they view the public chattel is as creatures, right? So then they name them and they gain control over them. Or I could just be looking too much into it. Who knows? But if Google just laid off a bunch of people for some over AI, well, I mean, honestly, a lot of the tech people should have seen that coming.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
for sure.
Like wishful thinking type stuff.
And same with like movies, entertainment, all that stuff's going, the way of AI. Can only imagine it's going to get worse for them. I can't
AI.
imagine that we never revert backwards, on most things.
Well, you remember this the Screenwriters Guild boycott
Yeah,
a
the
little while
strike.
back? Yeah, the strike. Yeah. Yeah, that was over the AI because AI can write a script as well. Well, very soon AI will be able to write a script as well as.
I don't remember who I was watching, but there's a software program you can download where you can literally write your own movie right now. Like if you got, I don't know how much it costs. I'd have to look it up again, but I mean, and it was legit. You just say like whatever you want the plot to be, and then it writes the script and everything for you. And it pretty much, you got to do little edits here and there, but outside of that, for the most part, the AI does makes you like an hour and a half long movie that you can just put up, and it's probably, I doubt you'd need a copyright for it, right? Because there's nobody in it that there's no real like stuff that is in that AI movie. That's why people use AI generated music because they can play it on YouTube. They don't have to worry
Oh,
about being copyright strike or anything.
no, I use AI for a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
Creator content, it's fantastic.
Right.
The one thing like what I do here, what I talk about, AI is never going to talk about. So until they start censoring, I'll be able to at least do this. You know what I mean? Or if they start censoring, but they probably will. What they're going to do is they're not going to outright censor you like they were during the COOF. What they're going to do is exactly what they're doing now. AI or X is and all these social medias. They're going to use AI to shadow ban. Basically, they say freedom of reach or freedom of speech, not freedom of reach. We're going to let you put whatever you want. We want you to put whatever you want. That's why they're all almost completely uncensored right now. We want you to say whatever you want to say on the social media website. Give us that data so we can put it through our Prism program, and then give it over to Palantir to figure out what to do with you and what you're about to do and what you're talking. They want all your information because they're creating entire predictive personality profiles for everybody. They probably already have them.
Yeah, for a social credit score later down the road. Yeah,
but they're not going to let other people see what you say.
Yeah, I kind of had the same feeling. I think that's why they're bringing a lot of these creators back on YouTube and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you can say whatever you want and do whatever you want. And it's like, yeah, all while they're pretty much collecting all your information and data that you're putting out there. But yeah, similar to what you're saying.
Labeling you a dissenter so that Palantir can take care of you later. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. And yeah, and they shadow ban, so they're collecting all this data to do exactly that, to label you a dissenter, and eventually who knows? That's the question, right? What are they going to do with all these displaced people? Because the amount of people that are about to be displaced, we're about to go through like a major change between the currency switchover and the AI implementation, which I don't know if you guys have noticed on your phones and on like certain social media, but they're like making little tiny changes, but significant changes every single day. They're integrating it more and more and more and more. Every single day they're integrating it more. Like now I go on to like YouTube will automatically break down what say like a, well, what's a better example? Like my phone automatically gives me a synopsis of text messages before I even read them. Like so and so is basically saying this and this. That's not the message. That's just AI's version of the message, right? Of giving me a brief summary. YouTube does it. I can't remember how, but they do it in some weird respect also. All of them do it, and they're integrating it more and more. So Ethan brought up something about the name I want to, and then I'm going to address Brad and Tasha too. We can talk about that. But Ethan said, interesting point about name and number. And he said, what's another word for nomenclature? Exactly. And it, in the sense of terminology, classification, codification, phraseology. Nomenclature is actually why I think new number or numeral and nomen like that are very, very close. There's something, number and name are very closely related, I think, etymologically. So Brad and Tasha said, also for pre-crime, they just arrested some guy in UK because they believed he was going to commit a crime, but he didn't actually commit any crime at all. Exactly. Yep. Yep. And we're going to have Minority Report. More importantly, though, what I worry about is what are they going to do with all the displaced people? So maybe that's why they're going to do this first. They're probably going to do this first before they implement the AI. And this is going to take care of a lot of the people that cannot make it on their own. And what I mean by that is, like, if Donald Trump Jr., and I don't know if you heard what I was saying earlier, but I was talking to my buddy about this earlier, and he told me, he was like, yeah, well, it's weird because he watches Don Jr.'s podcast. He's not necessarily a normie, but he's just very just stuck in his ways. So he watches Don Jr.'s podcast, and he says, yeah, usually he says, protect your assets with gold, protect your assets with gold, protect your assets with gold. But just a couple of days ago, he started saying, buy ammunition. Ammunition is going to be the most valuable thing in the near future. Buy ammunition. That's what he said. Now, YouTube, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying to buy ammunition. All right, YouTube. But what I am saying is that was said to people, right, from a huge influencer. And so could there be a massive period of unrest about to take place? And then they count on that to maybe take care of a large amount of the people that wouldn't be able to work in the near future. And then the Section 8 housing you're talking about, Chad, is for the rest of them?
There's that. And I also wonder, they say that the border crossings are down, so they got all those housing units down, not housing, but all those facilities down near the border. I mean, that they were building those for other purposes too. You know, I don't know how big there are, how many there are. I'm sure there's quite a few in there. I'm sure they house quite a bit of people. So, you know, who knows if, you know, what are they just sitting there for? Are they just going to leave them there, or are they going to actually tear them down? I would say that they're probably going to be used for something in the future. I don't know what, but
I agree with you. And you just reminded me of something. Now, I had brought this up the other night, and Jeff had remembered remembered seeing it also. But I distinctly remember seeing something where, like, there was, I want to find it. Do you guys remember when the Border Patrol enforcement, this is a few years back before even this immigration crap happened, probably more than a few years. I'm almost thinking maybe even Obama's term, possibly. But the Border Patrol was given, like, increased jurisdiction to like 500 miles within any border, national border of the United States. ICE was given like some sort of special jurisdiction to be able to go into homes without a warrant and all this stuff within 500 miles of any border. And when you look at 500 miles of any border, that's almost everywhere in the United States, or whatever the distance was. Maybe it wasn't, it was something not small, or not large, but when you look at it, it didn't have to be, because you have a border north, south, east, and west, obviously, right? They consider the Pacific and Atlantic coasts national borders. So they're talking about inland from there the amount of space that it covered. And then there was also, I think maybe they included reservations and stuff like that as foreign territory. So essentially it was a tricky way to give ICE jurisdiction within almost the entire United States to basically transgress due process. And I'm trying to remember if it was an executive order gives Border Patrol.
And not only that, if you remember during the 2020 event, they also were able to use sports facilities for what, nobody actually, they never went to them, all the, when they brought the ship into New York and all that, they never got used, but you can see that they have the capability of putting up tents and whatever for, whatever type of situation may occur, that they can, quickly just, I don't know, let's say use a Wrigley Field in Chicago or wherever, Yankee Stadium or something, just quickly just put up somewhere for displaced people.
So we know that all the Walmarts are already ready to be turned into a
Or
campus.
that too, yeah.
Yeah, at any point in time. So I'm going to erase ability. I'm just going to try to search this once. I just got to see if I can find it. Because I brought it up the other night. I know for a fact, I'm telling you, I've seen this, and I seen a map of it too. And it was like, wow, that was clever.
What wasn't it also Obama that started the Five Eyes program? Didn't that start in his term?
Was he the one who did Five Eyes? I'm not sure, actually.
I'm not sure either. Sounds right.
I mean, he did a lot of shiesty stuff.
That was another way they're using when they're using all the other countries' intelligence agencies to spy on each other's citizens so they can skirt privacy laws.
I think this might be it, actually, maybe. Although the federal government can, so although the federal government claims the power to conduct certain kinds of warrantless stops within 100 miles of the U.S. border, important Fourth Amendment protection of this helps, blah, blah, blah. But this still isn't the exact article. It's almost like they removed every single article of what I'm talking about. And they did something clever with it, too, where they considered certain things inland as a national border. And then, of course, with everything else that's going on with immigration right now, all the new every result is going to be, okay. So here now they're fact checking. They did remove all this shit, definitely, because I can find the fact checks, but not the actual. Okay, so let's do this.
I noticed you're using Yandex, and I use Yandex a lot too. But have you noticed that it's become less reliable?
Yep.
Yeah, I've noticed it's a whole lot less reliable than when I first started using it.
We're witnessing it right now.
Yeah.
They changed it. Yep. They changed it because now I can't even pull up a single WordPress.
Yeah, it's almost like a Google search at this point. Occasionally you'll break through on a few things, but I know you said something about if you're doing a Google search, what you put it in quotation marks or something like that.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Gotcha.
So sweeps, no. So let's see what they're trying to say in the fact check, right? Because this is always the opposite of whatever they're telling you is actually the case. Yeah. This is exactly what I was saying. Yeah, viral post claims border agents can enter anyone's home within 100 miles of the border without a warrant. So, yeah. A post shared on Facebook claims the Supreme Court ruled in favor of border agents allowing to enter anyone's home without a warrant if they live within 100 miles of the U.S. Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
What year was this?
This would have to. It's a while back. I think it's going to be
2022.
22. Okay, so it wasn't as far back as I thought. 22. But isn't it interesting? You know why I believe that they did do that? Because that would just fall right into perfect dovetailing lockstep with what's going on right now with the immigration and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the fact that they're fact checking it. They only fact check stuff that's true. I swear they do.
I don't know what the seriousness or, you can never trust what the government says, but obviously, but like, I know that the Republicans, and I've even heard Trump them talking about pushing for mass amnesty. And I think that has a lot to do with like, oh, this is how we can win the midterms or whatever. If you believe in, I don't believe in voting, obviously, but I think it's kind of a little.
Look at this. Look at Michigan. This is where I'm at. That's the entire state of Michigan.
Yeah.
They could literally turn Michigan into
everywhere but Chicago and Illinois.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this, when you look at this map, 100 miles from any border, right? Because even though fact check's saying it's not true, we all know that because fact check is saying it's not true, it's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it would make sense because look how clever this is. Most of the people that live in this country live in this bright yellow area somewhere. These are all the major cities. This, like all of Michigan. You got all the major cities right here. I bet you this even reaches into Chicago. And then
maybe they're already housing them there, so they don't even have to worry about it.
Because look, all this right here is primarily empty. If you guys can see my cursor, all of this is primarily empty plains and farmland, and there's not really anybody in these areas. The majority of the population of the United States are condensed to the east coast, west coast, north, and south. That's it. And they did that on purpose.
Well,
to clear out the large. Go ahead.
Some of the Midwest, the bigger cities in the Midwest are becoming increasingly more liberal, like Des Moines and Iowa and Omaha and Nebraska. They're becoming increasingly liberal, and it's almost like they've been pushed into that area. Like, oh, we'll push, the rest of the state's not on board with any of that type of thinking, but they'll just push them into these bigger cities.
No, 100%. They're doing exactly what they do with refugees to get them to invade. They'll basically create some sort of chaotic situation in, say, like Syria or Afghanistan or Pakistan or something like that. They'll carry out they'll create chaos, and then these people flee the chaos, and they intentionally, and they direct the flow of the refugees to whatever Western nation they want them to go into. Well, that's what they did with liberals in the United States. Is like in California, they intentionally wrecked California where all these liberals were to cause a mass migration into conservative areas.
Mm.
It's the same tactic. It's funny though when you think about it, like they're treating liberals like refugees. It's pretty funny. What is this video? So, oh yeah, this is that dark one. This doesn't quite fit with tonight's show, but so this right here is the only document apparently. Well, you know what? Let's do a Yandex search on the debt clock and see if. And if you guys are just joining, apparently the debt clock is telling us that the Fed is about to shut down, and this PDF is just completely red pilling. Whoops.
That's what I did the search on last night to find that article I put in the.
And that was the only article.
That was the only thing I found, but yeah.
Oh, so I'm not going to waste my time. Yeah, exactly. So that's the only article we can find, huh?
Yeah, and that seemed like a fluff piece, basically. Just kind of a deception or whatever, but.
Well, it was interesting.
Hopium red pill type thing.
It was interesting. So it's a WordPress, right? But then, well, let's see if the stuff even comes up on the side this time. Last night I noticed. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong one. Where is that website at? Damn it.
Hey Ryan, I'm gonna have to hop off.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming up for sure. I appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna show those links if
Take care, man.
Probably going to. Have a good night, though.
You too, Chicago Cubby Bear.
You too.
Take it easy. Laters.
Where the hell did we find that? Or where did I have that damn website that I just was showing a second ago? Oh, is this it? I'm freaking on it. That's retarded. All right, so I thought I was on the debt clock because it's showing the picture of the debt clock. Isn't that funny? I haven't even smoked any weed tonight, I swear. Let's see here. So there was last night when I was going through, let me try to refresh it. I noticed something was funny. They had these advertisements on the side. And if you go watch the end of the video, the stream I did last night, they had these advertisements on the side that were talking about like Civil War. It was very strange. This can't be it. Is this no, this okay, no, this is Eddie's, what he sent me. This is an article about the secret window messages from the debt clock. So just for all the people who just showed up, probably have to go back and watch because I'm not going to go through it. But the Fed, when you go to U.S. debt clock, the Fed says it says the Fed is under construction out of time. Click this free PDF download, pops you over here to where it basically red pills. It starts off, the whole thing starts off quite unbelievably with scripture. If I can get to the top of this thing. Starts off with scripture right here. Says, and Jesus went into the temple of God and cast out all of them that sold and bought in the temple and overthrew the tables of the money changers. And then the whole thing is literally just telling you exactly what the Federal Reserve has done, what the Bank of England has done, how far this goes back. Tells you that the Revolutionary War was actually about the bankers, right? It was actually because they took away the colonies' ability to create their own currency. And that quote right there, I've been searching for years to find an authoritative source, and they removed it from everywhere. And now they're just telling people about it. So now that you're up to speed, I'm trying to find that article, or we can go back to this little WordPress about that Eddie sent us real quick. So it says, for those who've been monitoring the U.S. debt clock, in order to look for details about the U.S. financial picture, perhaps to gain clues into the restoration of the legitimate U.S. republic, you will likely have noticed that the debt clock began to change in September 2023. Well, I did not notice that. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice it before, but I just, when you were talking about it last night, I was looking at something that they brought that up, that it's been since 2023. And like, I haven't noticed anything since then. Not until you just started talking about it that I even realized this was a thing.
Well, because apparently, like, he sent me this is from 2023.
Yeah. And I check it from time to time. I mean, not regularly, but I from time to time I'll pop it up just to look at it,
Oh no, I'm sorry. It wasn't from 20. I think this was the one they were showing right before they started showing this one that's on there now. And so it's like a ritual, like they've been leading you up to what we're about to do it. We're about to do it. We're about to do it. And then now, so this is one of the slides that is in here. So since 2023, each one of these slides have been being popped up onto the U.S. debt clock incrementally until now they finally finished the whole thing. Let me zoom out so I can navigate.
Do you have any idea? So prior to this big, beautiful bill passing, what was the national debt before that? Was it 35, 36? Can you remember?
I cannot remember, but I do know that the U.S. or the reason he wanted now I'm realizing that the reason that he was so adamant about making sure that bill passed no matter what is because it contains the entire infrastructure for this AI governance and this U.S. dividend dollar. So he didn't really care about anything else other than getting this through, because that debt's not. It's
artificial.
Yeah, it's what he wants. So if he gets to implement this incrementally, but they're talking about phasing it out, so they're not going to just do it in one fell swoop, right? Look at this; it's crazy. On the debt clock website, they're telling people, in accordance with the power granted to we the people by the Most High God, we assert our right to secure our life, liberty, and property. So now they're not even trying to hide what law is really about with the pursuit of happiness. No, it's about property. In doing, we find it necessary to undo the injustice brought upon us by the secret private banking conglomerate known as the Federal Reserve. The Fed has systematically stripped the wealth of our nation and placed it in the hands of an elite few using a carefully crafted criminal scheme. And they've even went through the trouble of highlighting things, so if somebody's just skimming it, they can get the gist, right? Some normie. Dating back over 100 years, while posing as a federal agency, they operate as unlawful money laundering and racketeering, et cetera, et cetera. That's pretty crazy stuff to just be. But this is supposed to be, this is the end right here. So they incrementally have been releasing this since 2023, and now it's just boom, new money for a new America. And then
do you think this is like more pressure to get rid of Powell too? I mean,
oh, absolutely. That guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, and I was even playing it earlier. This whole thing just lines right up with it, like a nod right to it, if it loads anytime today, right?
I mean, not that they have anybody better to, they always take somebody away and just give you somebody worse. So it's not like they
Yeah.
got anybody better to come fill his spot. But I was just curious.
Look, they're in the Fed under construction with hard hats, and he tells them they were overspending and putting basements where there shouldn't be basements, which I think is code, talking about interning people, basically mortgages, putting them underground, you know.
Mhm.
But let's see this thing. So it says the site began to change in appearance, taking one or more colorful appearance than previously, with more rainbow colors. So then on October 1st, it began to show a message referring to a secret window. Interesting, available on its site. On October 1st, 2023, the so-called secret window showed a variety of very interesting messages. This article goes through the debt clock messages up to the 31st of December 2023 only. For those after this, see my continuation, blah, blah, blah. And then this is how it, so incrementally, October 18th, October 19, October 20, and then 2023. And then boom, October 1st, 2023 says the US debt clock secret window premieres tonight. Don't tell anyone. Maybe that's why they're shadow banning it. Maybe they're really legitimately trying to like keep it so that only people who actually give a shit about the debt find out about this and can kind of take any preemptive measure. And that would fall right in line with how they operate. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think. I mean, it's I don't know. It's pretty strange, man.
Yeah, the whole secrecy behind it's very, very strange to me too. I don't get why more people aren't talking about it.
I think it's because AI, and this could also be a beta test to see how their AI works at shadow
Reaction.
banning and suppressing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because I've been launching it out on every post, and I've made my own short, and I've been
Yeah, I
launching it
saw
out.
that.
Yeah, and I've been putting it on every major post on X, on Facebook, and nobody's seeing it on X. It's weird because like even just by sheer happenstance, on a post that's getting 450,000 views and people are watching, you comment on it, you're at least going to get a couple hundred, right? Even if you don't even have really anything to say, or 150 or something. I get like 7 over
Yeah,
the course of 12 hours with that. But any other post I post about, I get 100,000 views when I post about 9/11 on somebody's stuff, right?
Mhm.
But this is huge news. Nobody, right? Okay, so Ethan said life, liberty, and property is the OG language of the Constitution. The good one. Yep, the real one for the country. Constitution for the United States. Well, well, actually, the Constitution never said anything about like that's the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution's actually always been a document of enslavement, Ethan. I can prove that. It for sure has. We had the Articles of Confederation, and the problem was the Articles of Confederation were impenetrable. They couldn't create centralized control, which they needed to do for the same reason that placing this all in, like how it says that each currency will be state chartered, that makes it impossible for one entity to centralize control over the currency of all the states if each state controlled their own currency. Well, something similar to that. So that's why they had to make it so that the federal government was in charge of controlling the currency. So then all they had to do after that was create a federal citizen so that that federal corporation had collateral, and then they could bring in the central bank and cast that net of trust indenture over everybody at once. That was the purpose of the Civil War. That was the purpose of the Constitution. It was to create a stronger central government, federal government, with the intention of usurping the sovereignty of the states later and bringing all the states under that one central authority. I can prove it just in saying that Thomas Jefferson despised the Constitution. He hated it. He was on a diplomatic mission in Tripoli to help them deal with pirates, which I think, if I remember correctly, is the birth of the Marine Corps. And while he was gone is when they ratified the Constitution. Or when they drafted it and ratified it, they drafted it without the consent and against the consent of the people. Thomas Paine, I believe it was either Thomas Paine or Patrick Henry, railed out and said, why would we abolish the form of government that saw us through the war against the greatest empire on earth, and we won? Why would we accuse that government of inefficiency or something like that, right? And he's like, and then why would we abolish it and start a new one? We already have this government seen us through war against the strongest military force in the world. It worked. This government's fine. But the reason being is because it had provisions in the Articles of Confederation. Like if your representative in federal Congress was not doing what you wanted them to do, there was no term. Like you could call them back that year, fire them, and get a new one and send them out there that same year. There was no like time you had to go and you'd be like, you're done. You're out of here. You're fired.
Yeah.
They couldn't have that. They needed these vampires in the retirement home that is Congress to sit there and spend their entire, or in Senate to spend their entire lives in there and become entrenched fixtures of the federal system, so that they could carry out long plans over a long period of time using the same people.
Yeah.
You know what I
All
mean?
while grooming the next batch of demons that they put in place.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's a lot of what the WEF's about. I mean, they basically, they pick all these young up and comers and groom them to go out and, whatever government, Canada's, the US, all over the world,
Yeah, exactly. I have to really drive this home for the true few here. Is the Constitution is actually is 100% worth the paper that it's written on, because they use it to keep you enslaved. So there's a couple clauses in the Constitution that they use, aside from the 14th Amendment and Article 1, Section 8, which gives commerce jurisdiction over all commerce, right? Do you guys hear that echo? What the hell is that?
It might be me. Let me drop out and I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Yep. So Article 1, Section 8, other than Article 1, Section 8 and the 14th Amendment, the other provision, which is the Article 1, Section 8 and the 14th Amendment, and I think Article 5 are how they do everything, right? And so let's see, where's the this clause I'm trying to look at. Okay, I'll just search it real quick. And this one, it's called the slave. What is it? Slave clause of the Constitution. We'll just say that clause of the Constitution. Something like it's like the of the Constitution. Yeah. Fugitive Slave Clause. That's what it is. Okay, so the Fugitive Slave Clause, this is what they use right now to protect their property from you and to try to make sure that you can't get out of your indenture, right? No person held to service or labor in one state under the laws thereof, escaping into another shall. So notice how they don't say slave, even though they call it the Slave Clause, and you are a debt slave right now. They say service or labor. Well, you're in service. You're an agent of the United States, indentured by the central banking system for the debt, which again, right here, they mortgaged all the homes, all the people in the nation. They acted as oops, not this one. They acted as proxy settlers, which means they conveyed the controlling interest of your estate to to the central banking system. So it says right here, the emerging fiduciary model in administrative law posits that administrative agencies are endowed with authority to set regulatory policy. Administrative agencies are like the DMV, IRS, ATF, FBI. Those are all administrative agencies, not to mention the administrative courts that you get your traffic tickets and everything through, right? but they're allowed to set regulatory policy. Regulatory policy means the regulation of the use of your property because it's being held as collateral for the debt. And it tells you that Congress and President acted jointly as proxy settlers, right? What's settler, right? Settlement, the conveyance of an estate for the benefit of some person or persons. That's why everything they do has to be for your benefit, because it's like a big welfare. I call them philanthropaths. That's why they even created the Space Administration for your benefit. It's in Title 42, Health and Welfare. Why is the Space Administration in health and welfare? Well, this is why, because it has to be for your benefit. And it has to be in accordance with the Magna Carta, which means when they're administering an estate, they have to maintain it and keep it in order and protect the property and all that stuff. So everything that's the reason they create all these NGOs, non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, is so that they can always claim that they're appropriating and using. So Congress appropriates money for your benefit, right, against your estate, or not money, appropriates debt, loans against your sweat equity for your benefit, and then turns around and feeds it into NGOs who are supposedly getting the money to use it for your benefit, and then they place themselves in the top positions of those NGOs to pay themselves all the money they're appropriating against your sweat equity. They're fleecing you. They're fleecing you by claiming that they're doing it for your benefit. And it's right here. I just showed you in less than a minute and a half and proved it to you. That's exactly what they're doing. This Fiduciary Foundations of Administrative Law is a UCLA law review. This is congressional record, right? And this, of course, is Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1856. I just proved it to you with those three things, right? So the interesting thing, let's see.
You still get echo from me? Am I good now?
Nope, you're totally
Okay.
good. You're totally
All right.
good. Yeah.
I need to get a set of headphones for this, I think.
So the service of labor, that's where I was at. Okay. So the fugitive. So they're careful to use, and I'll zoom in for you guys. They're careful to use these words, service and labor, instead of slave or slavery, but that's what you are because you're indentured. So you're in service. So indentured servant, service, right? The Trust Indenture Act of 1939, that is primarily the framework of everything. Of the indenture anyway, not the security system, just the indenture aspect of it. So no person held to service or labor in one state under laws thereof, escaping into another, shall in consequence of any law or regulation therein be discharged from such service or labor, but shall be delivered upon claim of the party to whom such service or labor may be due. That's it. That's what they're using right now to enforce all of this stuff. It's a huge part of it. And not just this, but like I said, Article 1, Section 8, that the entirety of that creates the military courts under creates the congressional courts, the military courts, or military tribunals. It creates the regulation of commerce, obviously, like I said. It's the way that they do literally everything they're doing through the territorial jurisdiction of the United States citizen, 14th Amendment, and the Buck Act, right? So the Constitution they are using the Constitution. That's what it was written for. That's why they wrote it in the first place. When you say I laugh when people say they're a constitutionalist. I'm a constitutionalist. Or when a cop likes to say, "Oh, are you one of those constitutionalists?" I say, "Hell no, absolutely not. That's a document of enslavement, dude. Nope, for sure not a constitutionalist at all. I think that document's a piece of shit." So back to when Thomas Jefferson came back. They ratified. So while he was gone, they ratified drafted the Constitution behind closed doors without the people's consent, with armed sentries outside. And you can find these in James Madison's diaries. You can find this. This is how they did it. They had armed sentries outside of the Constitutional Convention to make sure nobody could eavesdrop on what was being discussed. Because what was being discussed was how they could not let the common people have power. It was a threat to their financial interests. They could not actually, now that they won the war, they could not actually go through with letting people be sovereign, be free. So they had to figure out some way to circumvent the Articles of Confederation in a way that they could take away your sovereignty. That's what they were discussing in there. Okay, this was revealed in the Federalist Papers, the number 10, Federal Paper number 10, where Madison actually expresses that he was afraid of the masses of people having political power. It could not happen. And so they got together and they drafted this Constitution. And then, though most people were actually against it, they just pushed it through the ratification process of all the states, right?
Mhm.
The 13 states. And then when Thomas Jefferson came back, he was pissed. And he said the germ of dissolution is seated within this infernal document. He says it gives the judicial branch of government the ability to work like gravity by night and by day to usurp the sovereignty of the states. That is what he said about the Constitution.
That's why practically every one of these political figures all have some background in law, and why they have all these billions of aides attached to them, that, you know, they all got backgrounds in law, so they can find all the loopholes and all this to implement these things that they try to implement. I mean,
Well,
you know, outside of your local leaders, you know, most of them are well versed in all this type of stuff. I mean, for the most part, but it's people like you or, you know, us that, you know, push back against them, and that's what their big problem is with people like us.
You know, and it's funny because the politicians, they don't even actually write like the quote unquote, I hate when the news calls them this, the lawmakers. They're not fucking lawmakers. Man doesn't make law. They're policy makers. That's all they are. They make public policy for infants under administration. No man on earth can make law. That's not a thing.
Yeah, right? Subverters.
Right. Subverters of law would be, right? Subverter, if you said subverters of lawmakers, right? You could call them that because they're makers of subversion, but that's just too much of a mouthful. It doesn't roll off the tongue when you're on TV, I guess. But so these guys, they don't even actually write the stuff themselves. They have these like legislative assistants that are like basically the Uniform Law Commission, some bar pirate that's hired that writes all the legislation according to whatever the ULC wants them, because it's an unelected tribunal of attorneys that actually creates all the statutes and enactments and stuff. It's not the actual legislators. You've got the centralized organization called the ULC, called right here. We'll look them up. Why not, right? My computer's bugging. They must be pissed. Hold on. Let's see, ULC. So we'll look up ULC. No, okay, not you. Yeah, of course, that's a church. So uniform Law Commission. Yeah, so Uniform Law Commission. So these guys are an unelected organization of bar pirates, right, that draft legislation, just general templates of legislation, and then quote unquote suggest them to the states, right? Suggest them to the states and for adoption, and then the states all adopt them. That's why you have a lot of statutes in your state's compiled laws or statutes or whatever they call them. In your state, they're called compiled laws here in Michigan because they're not laws anymore. It's a big medley of jurisdictions, so they have to call it that. But a lot of them, you'll have words like, and the Uniform Law Commission was instrumental in setting up the system throughout the 60s and 70s. That's why you have the Uniform Commercial Code, the Uniform Probate Act, the Uniform Disposition on Unclaimed Property, just on and on. Uniform this, uniform that. Because these people who aren't even in our government, these are the policymakers. These are who are spoken about right here when they say are endowed with authority to set regulatory policy, administrative agencies. That's the ULC. They're not part of the government even at all, right? New study and drafting committees, 3 new acts approved by ULC's 134th annual meeting, right? And so you can go through here and you can actually search their documents, and when you find, so say like search unclaimed property, because that's what because they presume you're dead. That's a big, so there's this period of time during the 70s and 80s when this stuff was starting to be implemented, and they were, taking agricultural loans out against people as they were born, and because this is all done through the Department of Agriculture, by the way. It's like, so with your birth certificate, the money they get for that is agricultural loan, right? It's like a special agricultural interest. And maybe I'll do it. No, I definitely would do a whole show on that. Because the way they started setting up the system under the Federal Reserve, right after the Federal Reserve Board was started, they created the Federal Farm Loan Act of 1916. So you had the 1913 Federal Reserve, then you had the Federal Farm Loan Act of 1916, which carved the entire country up into 12 land bank districts, which ultimately became the 12 Federal Reserve districts, but it went through several evolutionary steps. And the reason they used farm is, one, because most people didn't know the law at this point in time. They had forgotten it because of all the depressions and wars and stuff, right? And then secondly, they use the word farm because it's accurate. And I'm going to show you something. You go here, and now we've got mortgage, but we do farm. And what a farm is the system of leasing out the rights of collecting and retaining taxes in a certain district, a district so leased. Okay. You go down to another dictionary that was American Heritage Dictionary. We'll go down to
so more like mining type definition.
Exactly. That's
Right.
exactly. Yes, absolutely. That's what they're doing. They're mining securities, mining commercial paper by creating attachments to your trust, to your estate, right? And then generating that commercial paper, claiming that you misused the property. Like it's so the property's under administration. Oh, you were supposed to only drive 55, but you were going 60. Cop hits the lights, boom, comes up, says license and registration. He needs that license because it's attached to your Social Security trust. He takes it. That driver's license number is an account number attached to your Social Security underwriting investment account. So they take that, they write down the number, write up the ticket. Now that ticket was secured by your trust and your future labor to perform the obligation, no matter what. So now they just made valuable commercial paper that they can turn around and sell to private institutional investors at a discount or whatever kind of deal they want to make, right? And they do that that's what it's all about, is creating attachments to your legal entity identification. Yeah, like NREM says, the Constitution's a big con. So we go down and we continue looking. Government, politics, and diplomacy. A district of where one or more taxes are leased. That's a farm, right? A fixed sum paid by an individual or group for the right of collecting and retaining taxes, rents, and profits, etc. So that's why they did the Federal Farm Loan Act in 19. Oh, wait, we're reading that one. We'll go here. We'll say, whoops. Open up. Maybe I need to close some of these tabs. Got a million of them open, slowing down. So we'll go boom, boom, boom. Come on. Boom. All right. So let's see if we can find this now. Federal Farm Loan Act.
Yeah, it's all word magic. It's all under the guise of saying farm, It's like, oh, the farmers were for the farmers, It has nothing to do with any of that.
PDF. Federal Farm Loan Act, 1916, right? And so the first thing they do is create a Federal Farm Loan Board. And this is because they had just instituted the Federal Reserve. So now they wanted to start setting up their ability to place liens on you as an agricultural product, as chattel property.
Yeah,
right?
More on elected officials.
Right. And it says, so they go down, they talk about, what they'll be paid and all that, but here's the federal land banks, right? So they created these federal land bank districts. If I said farm loan districts, I meant federal land bank district. Federal land bank districts, they later became the Federal Reserve districts. Now land, if you look up the definition of land, that's the people of a nation, right? That is, soon as practicable, the Federal Farm Loan Board shall divide the continental United States. Now, this is also placing federal jurisdiction over the states. How could they possibly carve the states into 12 districts federally, right? But they could because of the territorial jurisdictional authority after the Civil War. It's basically a conquered territory. All the states are conquered, right? So that's how they're able to do it. And they'd already done the reconstruction zone improvement. So they've been overlaying jurisdiction after jurisdiction. This is one of them. So the Federal Farm Loan Board shall divide the continental United States, excluding Alaska, into 12 districts. And it's funny because this is why, like in the Hunger Games, they do the District 12, District 11, it's 12 districts, because that person who wrote those books knows this. Whoever that is. And they show it right, or like whoever they really are, and they show this to you in your face.
And is that why they bring in, so, with a lot of this, the illegals coming in, is that how, by bringing them in, they're expanding their zones, their districts to?
No.
Okay.
So the reason they're bringing the illegals in is because it's all about dependency. Okay. And I can't express this enough. And this is a fundamental original, this is common law, actually. Man, this is Blackstone's commentaries. Man, considered as a creature, must necessarily be subject to the laws of his creator. This is common law, right? For he's an entirely a dependent being. A being independent of any other has no rule to pursue, but such as he prescribes himself. So he's saying if you're independent of any other being, then you are truly sovereign, right? Even from God. But since you have, that's impossible. You always have to be dependent on God. You're always subject to the laws of the creator, right? But a state of dependence, says right here, but a state of dependence will inevitably oblige the inferior to take the will of him on whom he depends as the rule of his conduct. So as soon as you sign up for welfare, as soon as you register as a 14th Amendment citizen for privileges and immunities and protections and benefits and all that, you automatically, by process of law, forfeit your will to that entity.
Right.
Every single time, no matter what. That's just how it works. So what I'm getting at with this is the immigrants are from where? Are they wealthy immigrants?
Not generally, no. Kind of all over the world and from
successful immigrants, or are they like third world fleeing their country immigrants?
Third world generally, but I know that I don't know what, they didn't speak much on it, but Trump wanted to implement that gold card thing of like kind of rewarding people to,
so
a better group of people, I guess.
So my next question is, when they come here, are they going to be dependent on the government immediately?
I would have to say they would almost have to be, wouldn't they? I mean,
so their will immediately is taken over by the government, and they're being administered as infants, right? That's the first reason. So they create an entirely dependent society, right? That would be subject to them. The second reason is they replace the indigenous society, the natives, that, the people of the country that have a birthright there. They replace them, and all the while destroying their culture, with people who have no birthright there, who could never claim the original common law jurisdiction or the original republic, that are entirely dependent on the government. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to destroy the country from the inside out and forever bar and lock away common law and create a subservient class of people that are entirely dependent on them, that they can control, all the while getting rid of us. That's why they did that.
Gotcha.
Yep. So 100% it was quite clever. So the fugitive slave clause, and then so Jefferson. So after Jefferson came back, the Constitution is a document of subversion and enslavement. They are acting constitutionally, and they're using Article 1, Section 8. They're using the 14th Amendment, and they're using this fugitive slave clause primarily to lock you into indentured servitude. And so when Thomas Jefferson came back and he said that the germ of dissolution seated within this infernal document, and he said all he said about the judicial branch, he went with Patrick Henry and Thomas Paine, and they went around and they rallied the people to demand a Bill of Rights amended to the Constitution. Nobody ever thinks it's odd that you had the Constitution, 1787, then 2 years later, right, you had the Bill of Rights amended to it. Why did it have to be amended to it? Why wasn't it included in the first place? Because they didn't want that shit in there. That's why. But then the people, rallied by TJ and them, went around and got, they got everybody to say, okay, we're going to have a Bill of Rights amended. Essentially what he said, not word for word, but essentially what he said to the people was, if you do not have a Bill of Rights amended this Constitution, then your husbands, your fathers, and your sons will have just died in that war for no reason. That's what he said to those people. And that's the only reason we have a Second Amendment. And that is the only thing that has kept this corporate oligarchy, this New World Order, these evil scumbags at bay, is the fact that they know that even if we wouldn't, like, the most people wouldn't use the Second Amendment, the fact that we have and we could, they can't risk it. And that's why they only push so far right now. And that's why they're trying to get this AI thing set up, so that AI and Palantir and their targeting of dissidents can just do the dirty work for them. Efficiently, quickly, and superhumanly.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
That's why they want to set up. That's it. There's no question. And so, yeah, it's kind of depressing when you think about it. But at the same time, when what was I going to say? When George Washington became president, he wrote a letter to the president. People don't even realize, everybody thinks George Washington was our first president. He was not our first president. We had like 8 presidents before him under the Articles of Confederation. Remember, the Articles of Confederation was ratified in 1777. Think about that number, 777, right? And it was a fantastic compact. So much so that it worried all the wealthy people like James Madison and them guys, to the point where they're like, we got to do something about this because they're actually sovereign and we can't have that. It's a threat to our wealth. So, all right. Good night, Faye. I didn't even know you were in here. I'm sorry. I've been over here rambling. Good night, Faye. Good night, Pat. Have a good night. I'm about to shut this down in a few moments myself. So,
Yeah, I gotta hit it too.
Get up for a shitty job interview tomorrow.
Uh-oh.
She said that's what she said.
Oh, that's what Faye had to do. Gotcha.
Yeah, that sucks, Faye. But good luck on the job interview, I think, right? I don't know if it's a shitty job interview. I don't know. Hopefully it goes the way that you want it to. How about that?
They're all shitty, yeah.
Yeah, they're all tax.
Doesn't matter what the job is. The interviews always suck.
Right, but so just to finish up, and then we'll show this down, the Articles of Confederation ratified in 1777. So you had from 1777 to 1787, 10 years where we had very short-term presidents, right? Just do a quick, and there's a conspiracy theory that I've never been able to confirm that one of those presidents was even a black guy, but it wouldn't surprise me because we've been lied to so much about history. But I've never been able to find concrete evidence on it. There happens to be a president of an African country at the same time with the same name, who is black, and that could have been an alteration of history, and they just put him in Africa as an African. I don't know, but so who was president, or how many presidents before George Washington? We'll do that, and you know what? We'll go on Yandex.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Right.
Not that you're gonna get way better results, but they're gonna be better than this.
Yeah, Yandex. I don't know why I didn't just do select all, but whatever. Yandex. So we'll go.
Now that Faye mentioned that about job interviews, you'd have to figure that would also go into a lot of this AI stuff. Like eventually you think AI is this, or social credit score or whatever, it'll just eliminate the process and they can pick the person based on whatever data they've collected prior.
That is listen, that's already happening, Chad.
Yeah, I'm sure for some.
I know for a fact I've got a buddy. He's like real high up and doing computer stuff or whatever, and he works for like big companies, big time jobs. He's a top guy in his field, but he's very outspoken, conservative about the LGBT and all that stuff. And he posts on Facebook and he posts on all the social media all the time. Well, the AI, the background checks now, when they do background checks, those background checks go through your social media with AI.
They did for me too. Yeah.
And then it's going to come back and tell these people like, oh, this guy is, right wing, And then the companies, because they're all on board with the New World Order, they weren't hiring. He just finally got a job, thank God, but he had been out of work for quite some months and months now, and he's like good at what he does, you know. So look at this. There's 14 presidents before George Washington. They led the United States' earliest governmental bodies, such as the Continental Congress and the Confederation Congress. 14 presidents. And so the 8 presidents under the Confederation Congress, right? Let's see, grunge. Let's see if they'll.
That's why, as a real quick tip, right before you go into an interview, like pause or suspend your social media content for a while, just during that period, so they can't go and look into it. But anyway, go ahead.
That's why I'm glad I know trade. So, John Hancock.
Yeah, I know. I don't have to deal with it now, but yeah, when I was doing that, they looked into mine. I didn't have anything that I think of that they really care about.
Horrible.
I mean, I've got some stuff on there, but I tend to be a little conservative about most things.
Yeah, I am as well. Seeing mine, well, you guys well know, it's like everything I'm telling you guys, unless I'm like, theorizing on esoteric stuff or stuff like that, but like the law stuff and everything that I tell everyone is true, and I can prove it, and I always prove it. I pride myself on always being able to prove it, and that's what people say about me when they talk about me. They're like, well, he proves it every time. So but even so, they still most definitely would consider all of my social media to be absolutely extremist, even though it's all true, which is ridiculous. It's all true. It's all true stuff that they're doing, and I'm not being extreme. I'm just like, hey, you fuckers are doing this. Oh, he's a right-wing extremist. No, maybe, but you are definitely doing this. You know what I mean? So, because right-wing, you have to remember, is no government. It's not Republican. That's the real left and right-wing. Left is pure government. Right is no government. That goes all the way back to again, that gets into the symbolism of everything. And way before the United States, back in France, medieval France, that's what left wing and right wing. We had anarchy and people who wanted absolute control, and still that way today. So, but yeah, these were the presidents, and that's pretty wild. Samuel Huntington, Thomas McKean. But you never learn about them. You never learn about them in school or anything.
No.
Like, they don't want you to know nothing about the Articles of Confederation or the Constitutional Con or any of that shit. So, all right, I'm going to go through a few chats, address them, and then I think I'm going to close this down tonight if anybody's got anything to say. It looks like a lot of people went to sleep, so to bed. Policy magicians, politicians, that's funny. Let's see, you said you can go to the auction grounds too. There's one. Oh, I think they were having a conversation. My bad. Okay, here we go. NREM. The first 3 letters describe exactly what the Constitution right? The Articles of Confederation adopted from the Iroquois was better guidelines for people's protection from overreaching government. And they did actually, they did get it from the Iroquois Confederation. That's where they got the idea. You're right. It's interesting. And I don't think the Native Americans are what they were telling us they were either originally at all. I think they were highly developed people, possibly. But that's just what I think. I could be wrong. And Mojo's still with us. So
what is Valley Parks? That mentioned something about Stockholm, California, or Stockton, sorry. Might as well be Stockholm, right?
Yeah, right. In Stockton, California, they say probation or parole when you get pulled over. Okay, I know why. I can explain it because, so the definition of license is permission to do something unlawful, which is to imply that it would be otherwise unlawful for you to be engaging in commerce without that license on the roadway, is what they're saying. So the fact that you have to be licensed to operate is actually is legally a form of parole, actually. Yep, that's legally a form of parole. It's the same thing as being put on papers and conditionally let out, or to being allowed for a temporary period of time to go on shore from a ship, which is another way of saying paroled. So, yeah. Well, all right. Hopefully Mojo Shop's ribs are feeling better, man, because he cracked his ribs. And
Yeah, I heard that the other night. That's can't be very fun.
it hurts
It's
to
got to hurt
breathe.
every time you breathe, don't it?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever cracked a rib?
I haven't, thankfully.
I have. It's awful. FE Nation said he's lurking. Well, good to have you here. And all right. Well, I guess do you got anything you want to say, Chad?
No, it was thanks for having me on. It was
of course.
another good stream you had going there. I just thought I'd pop on for a minute. I'd never been on before. I'm always in chat, but thought I'd pop in here and say hello. And I always learn something from it. So thanks for having me up, man.
You're always more than welcome on here, man. Anytime I'm streaming, I've been posting the link in the chat usually because I've thankfully not had morons too often, but that's good. And
every now and again, I seen you had one a couple nights ago. I actually knew who that was. That speakeasy guy or whatever.
Troll? Was he a troll?
Well, yeah, he's from the debate circles. They all say the same crap. They just want to argue and run around in circles every time. They never get anywhere.
Pretty sure I made him look stupid real quick. He didn't even have anything to say about it.
He comes from the Andrew Wilson sphere, that type of crap.
I don't even know
who that is.
Mm-mm.
Oh, he does debate I don't know what you call them. Just basically debates. All they do is debate all day long about everything and anything. But
it's just like drama and
yeah, basically. I think he's been on like the Tim Pools before and stuff like that.
He's been on Tim Pool?
Andrew Wilson has, yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh shoot, he's even made some appearances on Fox News lately. He's one of the bigger ones, yeah.
And he's just a huge shill, huh?
I don't know what he is. I'm not a fan of him, but
if he was on Tim Pool, then probably
most likely, yeah.
I'm not saying Tim Pool is necessarily, but Tim Pool is not going to go outside of his comfort zone about it.
He's like Alex. He's those 80-20 mixes, 20% truth, 80%.
Yeah, 80% bullshit, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I, as always, glad to have you. Thank you, Chad, for coming up with me, and I will may take tomorrow off. We've been having a little streak here, so but I don't know. I might not. So we will see. I'll see you guys soon.